Hello and welcome to the James Xander Trip. In today's episode, we're going to dive into the tools and frameworks of personal growth, the 4 pillars of success, finding one's purpose, overcoming the dark night of the soul, stepping into one's power, and much more. Joining me today is the host of the Dream Out Loud podcast and the founder of one of Australia's top-rated personal development companies. He helps people break through fear, self-doubt, and limitations to create their life with intention, passion, and next-level success. Please welcome Morgan Nelson.
Thank you, my good sir.
Thank you for coming. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Mate, I'm super excited to jump into this big conversation we're about to have.
Yes.
See what happens.
Yes. Your podcast is called Dream Out Loud. How have you dreamt your life out loud?
I think everything I'm living right now is really like I often talk about there's 3 different levels of learning in life. The first one is knowing information. And, so if we talk about dream out loud, people can be like, oh, okay, now I know what it is. Maybe I know I can dream out loud. I can make my dreams a reality. And the second level is understanding. So they can understand, maybe after this conversation, they'll be like, oh, I really understand the concept of that now, or I understand the 4 pillars that I'm sure we'll talk about. And then maybe if they understand, they could teach it back. It's kind of like a university professor. I've always wondered, why does someone go to university or college to learn business? Makes no sense to learn business from someone who has a job. Nothing against them, but it just doesn't make any sense. Because most people get stuck there in life at the understanding part. But the third one is the embodiment. So actually living the things you know about. So if we talk about how have I lived, how do I have actually embodied, dreaming out loud? It's funny. Every single thing I do in my life, it's like I just create a life by design. I've created a life with success in as many areas as I can. But ever since a young age, I've always sort of had these 2 things inside of me. One was like the attitude of like, you might die tomorrow, so fuck it and do it today. That's an attitude. And then also like be disciplined today, make sacrifices today so you can create an incredible tomorrow. So I've always sort of made sure that I've balanced between those things where sometimes, occasionally, to create an incredible life, we've got to do things in a moment that's not too exciting sometimes. So I just make sure that those days are never too many in a row.
Yeah, because there's that tension sometimes between, do I live in the moment and enjoy the moment now, or do I keep building my life, like stacking the bricks, even though it doesn't look exciting and from the outside?
Well, I think it's like, I get that. And I truly think if people are spending too many days doing the things that they don't love because to build a better tomorrow, I think that's not a great life. Because because what will happen is they'll get to the promised land and then be like, oh, actually this sucks. This wasn't, because it's never about the amount of people I've interviewed, and I'm sure you've probably even seen the same. The amount of people I've interviewed or talked to or even experienced myself, they've never once said, oh, once I create that business, once I got that thing, then I was so happy. It's only ever the other way around. They got there and they realized it wasn't anything that they wanted, because all the happiness, all the joy is actually in the journey the entire time. So I've always been very mindful of that, to make sure that the things that I'm doing every day, the work that I'm putting in every day, the things that I am sacrificing, that I still enjoy it. And I'm still actually doing the things I love. I think from a young age, it's always been like I actually got Dream Out Loud tattooed on my chest when I was 17 with a fake ID, because that was sort of like my motto. I was like, why is everyone going to university and doing all these things? I'm like, you should just like go and create an extraordinary life. Like, do the thing you want to do in your life. And I saw all my friends go to university and college and doing all this, and I knew it was never for me. So I sort of just set out to go do the things that brought me joy, which at 18, I had no idea what I was going to do. So I just went and traveled for a couple months. And then when I came back from traveling Europe, the question was, how can I make as much money as I can so I can go and do a trip like that at least once a year?
Where do you think that drive for dreaming out loud to have a bigger life came from? Was it from a young age that someone or something inspired you to dream bigger?
I don't think it. I think it was the not having it made me want to do it. So like growing up, like with my parents, we were never in a, my parents were never entrepreneurial, anything like that. We sort of just grew up in a very average household, I guess you could say. Like never rich, never poor, but just sort of just got by, was just sort of that mediocre sort of thing. And countless times I can remember back of things around money or birthdays, Christmases, holidays, anything like this. A lot of time when it came to money and doing things in life, because we would see these things on TV, right? See things, TV, movies, and all this. I'm like, I want to have that. And then when you bring it to your own life, go, why can't we have that? And it was always like, oh, we can't afford it, or things like this, right? So I think growing up for me was really seeing all this and going, I don't want that. I don't want to have to keep saying no in my life. I want to be able to do things like this. So it was probably a lot of that. And then when I was 11, I think, 11 or 12, I got my first job, kind of like my first job, with this guy, Cameron. And I was just helping them manufacture their products in their garage at the time, back where we lived. And he was a millionaire. So I would get off the bus every single day, go to their house and work with them at their house. Big, amazing house. The days I'd be there on the weekends, I'd cook me lunch and have like steak and like all this good food that we wouldn't usually have back home. And then I'd go back home and it'd be a completely different lifestyle. So I think I saw from a young age the two lives. I was like, well, these guys are rich and they've got an incredible house and they're doing all this stuff and they're happy, like, because they get to control their income and all this, and they have a business. And then mum and dad, they're always stressed about money and, we're having to not do things here so we can save here and all this. And I truly think like it probably all came from a young age of seeing the contrast of the two and just going, which one do I want? And so I probably got programmed quite young to be like, if you want to be successful, you got to have your own business. You got to do something like that, or at least refuse to settle for what you don't want.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing that you had that at age 11. It's almost like the rich dad, poor dad analogy.
Well, after I read the book, I'd think back to that. I was like, oh, Cameron was kind of like my rich dad, is that the show is just that sort of different life.
Do you think you picked up any lessons from Cameron of how he lived his life, or the sorts of books he read, or the sorts of people he learned from?
Not really, because he's a funny dude, actually. He's I wouldn't say, like, there's definitely, and if he ever watched this, he'd admit to it. There's many things that he did that he'd probably be like, you shouldn't learn from me, because he was just sort of like a wild sort of dude. He was kind of like, and I'm very good friends with him still today. And he's really found his spiritual side now, because I think he just chased success for so long. So I kind of also learned how not to do it with him as well, because he just pursued work all the time and didn't really have much time for his kids or his wife or anything like that. And so from my last sort of decade of my life, I've been able to look into that as well and be like, oh, that wasn't healthy too. So I was literally having a conversation with my friends last night, and I was like, I've learned probably more from attending people's events and having conversations with people on how not to live my life than I've learned how to live it.
Wow. Yeah. And it's so much of success is actually avoiding the pitfalls and the distractions and the traps of life, and just sticking to the core fundamentals of success.
Yeah. Well, like figuring, like for me, I think success is this. I don't know where it come from. Like maybe I can think about it, I can ponder on it one day. But if I often think, like, if I lost everything, would I still be very happy doing the same thing I'm about to do today? And the answer is always going to be yes for me. Like I really don't want to be doing the things that I don't like doing. But some people, like, it really comes down to a few things. Like what I teach people at my 3-day event, Discovering Your True North. If people are living a life in their true north, they'll always be happy. And then we should always just find a way then to make a lot of money doing the thing that we love doing. Then, because more money is just more units of choice, we can, have nice things. And whoever said money doesn't buy happiness is obviously broke. Like, it's fact. My friend wrote a book called Money Buys Happiness. It makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's like, but people who often don't have money will say, well, money doesn't buy happiness, because they're trying to actually, they think money will bring them happiness, but money is an amplifier. And, so the work is always an internal job, but then money will come and amplify whatever's happening inside of us. So if you're a great person, you're going to do more great things. Like we're supporting the Bali Street Mums project here. I don't know if you've heard of that. There's this woman in Dempsey helping all these mums and kids get off the street from sex trafficking and homelessness, and it's just a safe house for them, and we're running a mastermind here at the end of the year. And our whole mastermind's coming over. We're doing a day of give back with them. We're raising $15,000 for them, and people say money doesn't buy happiness. Bullshit. You haven't given enough of it away, right? So money's the amplifier. So inside of us, where I'm driven by impact, I want to help people, I want to do good. So the more money I have, the more good I get to do. But if I'm a shit person inside and I have a lot of money, then I'm going to do more shit with it. I'll do more bad with it. So it's not really the money. Money is just the tool. You've got to focus on developing humans a little bit better.
Why do you think people artificially limit their own potential? And instead of saying, how can I do this? Or how can I earn more money? They say, this is good enough. We're just going to save money. We're going to figure it out, but they don't dream bigger.
Fear. Yeah. I think a couple of things. Number one is fear. And the second thing is lack of self-worth. I was having a conversation with my friends again yesterday, and I said, and I think I might write a book about this one day. And because I truly, truly, truly I believe that under the root cause of every single problem or perceived problem that people have in this life is the fact they don't value themselves enough. So the lack of self-worth, lack of self-esteem. Because if people don't value themselves enough, they're not going to want to receive. They're not going to want to receive love. Not going to want to receive money. They're going to want to receive joy, compliments, and all these amazing things. They're not going to feel worthy to go after their goal. They're not going to feel good enough to be like, oh, but I can never start a podcast. I can never start a business. I can never do these things, because it's all the lack of self-esteem, who they believe they are about themselves. And then, so if we could really develop, like I was saying this to someone the other day, I'm like, I know nothing about parenting, right? And I'm very, very far away from ever being a parent. But I said, I'm like, one day if I do have kids, I'm not going to try and make them like, self-developed. I'm not going to try and do any of that shit. The only thing I'm going to do is help them build a really high level of self-esteem, so they can go into the world and make really good judgments based off what they believe is what they deserve. So if they can just develop a nice level of self-esteem, I believe they'll always go after what they want. They'll ask what they want, and they won't stop at anything if they believe they're worthy of it. And then the second thing is fear. So this is the interesting thing with life. Most people have multiple fears, and how I know this is because I've surveyed so many people, because every single time we do a 3-day event, which is the Dream Out Loud method, we do this massive exercise where we break through fear. And I was asked people, I'm like, put up your hand, who's got a fear that's holding them back? And people put their hands up. I said, yell it out to me. What do you got? Fear of judgment, the big one. Fear of not being loved. Fear of not being good enough. And then my two favorite, the fear of failure and the fear of success, paradoxically. So people have a fear of failing, but then they also have a fear of succeeding. So if they're afraid to go this way and they're afraid to go that way, they'll stay exactly where they are, and they won't do anything. But we all know that fear is nothing. It's a complete made up thing in our head. And I often say this, I'm like, what does fear mean? Who knows? And there's always one in the audience that goes, false evidence appearing real. And I'm like, it's a really cute acronym. It's a good reframe. Sure, use it. But what fear actually is, the definition is the anticipation of pain in the future. So the only way we'll ever actually be afraid of something is when we're living in the future. The only way we can have anxiety is to live in the future. The only way we can live with guilt is to live in the past. Live with worries to live in the future. Shame in the past. The only way we can actually be absolutely confident and certain is to be right here, right where we are. There's nowhere else to be. So all these things that are made up in their heads is because they're preempting something's going to happen, or they're worried about something that's already happened. If it's happened in the past, forget it. It's done. It's over. Learn from it. And then see the future, but make decisions from here. So I see the best possible outcome, but then make decisions from here. Because if you want to talk about mushroom stuff, we can dive into that for a second, of something I came through for me a little while ago when we were doing it. But the biggest problem I think people have, because back to the question was, you're like, what keeps people sort of there is worrying about what might happen. right? Worrying about what might happen. And I often tell people now, if you want to develop self-trust, you want to overcome fear, go skydiving. Not tandem, not strapped with somebody else. Go jump out by yourself. And they're like, what? Yeah, because I have a skydive license now. And I got it at the start of this year, right? So I drive up there. This is I learned so much, so many metaphors from the skydive license. I get up there day one, you sit in a tin shed for 8 hours and they do death by PowerPoint. It's like just PowerPoint, PowerPoint, PowerPoint.
All the different ways that you could die.
Bro, every single way. Here's how you could die. Here's what can happen. Your line twists. Parachute doesn't come out. 2 parachutes come out. How to get rid of a parachute. All these different things. Like what happens if your parachute just fails? And like all these sorts of things. What happens if you get knocked out? Like every single way for you to die of parachuting. And he's like, okay, let's go try parachuting now. And then like you got 8 hours of information in your head, and now they're like, okay, now do it on your parachute. You're like, I don't remember everything you said. Like there was so much stuff that I was going through. So then we do a tandem shoot that afternoon, and we have to practice doing the parachuting with somebody, right? And then that night I called my girlfriend. I said to her, I said, you know what? I really don't know if I want to do this anymore. Like this is like I live a pretty cool life. I think I could probably get through the rest of my life with not having to skydive. Like, I've got through this far. Maybe I don't need to. And she's like, well, if I said my gut is just really saying no. And she's like, well, you're really strong with your intuition. If it's saying no, don't come, don't do it, just come home. I'm like, I'll sleep on it because I'm really not sure if it's fear, the strongest fear I've ever had, or my intuition saying bad idea.
Sometimes it's hard to tell.
It was I could not tell the difference. So I was like, let me sleep on it and I'll see. So I go to sleep, wake up the next day, and I barely slept at all because in my head just running through like the checklist. Like when you pull your parachute, there's a checklist what you need to check for. And I'm like, and then wake up the next day, I'm getting ready for it. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready. I'm like, but what are you really worried about, Morgan? And the answer was, well, what if you don't open the parachute? I was like, why would I not open the parachute? Like, yeah, but I don't know why you wouldn't open it. It's a possibility. What if you don't? And then I'm like, I'm having this conversation with myself. And then the breakthrough was, I was like, well, so it's not really worrying. It's not really a fear of not opening the parachute. It's actually the fear of trusting yourself. And I was like, oh, Morgan, it's deep. So then I was like, can I trust myself enough to do what I need to do in the moment? And then if the next moment when it comes, if it's not what I anticipated, do I trust myself to do what's needed in that moment? And then once that moment's gone, the new moment's there, do I trust myself enough to do whatever's needed in that moment? And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And the answer was yes. So I was like, well, let's do it. So I get up there. I'm like freaking out. We're taking off. Altitude's climbing. And I'm like, can't get out now. The only way out is to literally jump out. The cage goes up, pop my head out like a dog with his head out the window. It's like, jump out and, flying around, pull the parachute. And as soon as it comes out, it didn't come out as perfect as it was meant to. All right. And then it's like, because it goes into like a little ball, right? And it's meant to sort of come out. And it's like this for too long. And I'm like, oh, fuck. The first thing you need to look for is shape. Has a rectangle come out, right? It's like a ball. And I'm like, oh, man. And then next to me, 5 seconds later, poof, comes out. I'm like, oh, cool. And then I'm just doing all the things I need to do. I take it down, find my spot, I land. When I get to the bottom, what do you think I want to do?
Go again?
Go again. Now I've jumped nearly 20 times. It's the most amazing thing I've ever done in my life because it's taught me more about backing myself and making the best decision every single moment. Because I think the thing that keeps a lot of people stuck is they do not trust themselves. Because fear is nothing. Fear will never disappear. Fear's always there. It's about stepping through with courage, taking courageous action. But the best way that I've found to eliminate fear is just to actually take action and trust yourself along the way to make the adjustments that's needed whilst seeing the fear, feeling the fear, and still being like, because it's fucking still worrying to jump out of an airplane. But I see it. And I'm like, I can feel that feeling of fear that's exciting for me and knowing that I can still make the decision that's necessary in the moment.
That moment right before you jump and you're on the edge, how does that feel?
I love it. I'm present. Honestly, I'm calm. That's the biggest thing. So we hit 12,000 altitude, right? So we jump at about 14.5, 15,000 feet. Once we get 12,000 feet, I clear my goggles, I put it on, I get ready. Everyone's high-fiving because there's like this thing where everyone high-fives and fist bumps just in case it's the last time. And this is like the energy on the planes are cool. And then we get to about 12,500 feet and I just sit there, I close my eyes and I breathe in. I breathe in from my nose like... I do this 3-4 times, completely regulates the nervous system, lowers your cortisol, all right? Completely calm me. And then from there, you make the best decision. So we only make shitty decisions when we're stressed. Like if anyone's listening or watching this, like if you've been really angry at someone before and you say something stupid, you do something stupid. You've been really upset, you say something stupid. You're stressed, you say something stupid. Because what actually happens when our cortisol's high, it actually ruins neurons in our brain. So we literally, scientifically, become more stupid. When we're stressed, we're enraged, when we're angry, when our emotion's high, right? It literally, especially stress, it makes us stupid. So that's why we'll say stuff sometimes and be like, and then after we calm down, I'm so sorry, I don't know why I said that. Because I just said something and I didn't mean it. But we did the best we could with what we had at the time. And then what's actually been also shown by studies is the more stress you are. So if you're exposed to stress for prolonged, it can actually ruin it over time. You can literally become more stupid over time. You can ruin your intelligence with stress. So I do my best to lower stress. So what's the best way to practice lowering your stress? Do it at 15,000 feet right before you're about to jump out of an airplane. If I can do it then, I can do it anytime. So what I do, I make sure before I jump, I'm calm. So I've never jumped. Well, I'm sure the first couple ones were pretty like but what I've really made sure to do is when I get there, I'm nice and calm, I'm ready, and I'm taking conscious steps out. I know what I'm doing, I'm ready, and I'm just counting down 3, 2. I'm here in my body. I'm not thinking about my landing. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just thinking about. Here's the thing. Actually, there's 5 steps to skydiving. So all these things I've learned. 5 steps to skydiving. Number 1 is exit the airplane. You got to exit. It's the first thing you need to do. Makes sense, right? Next thing is you free fall. So you fly. Step 3 is open your parachute. Step 4 is parachute. Step 5 is land. That's it. And one of the things they said, they're like, when you're up in the air, don't think about your landing. Don't think about free falling. Just focus on your first step. So just focus on exiting the aircraft. That's it. Nothing else. And then once you've exited, if you had the worst exit of your life and you tumbled out, don't worry about it. It's gone. It's past now. Now you're free falling. Get level. Get centered. Free fall. And if you free fall like a sack of shit and you're like wobbling and you can't do anything, too bad. You get to 6,000 feet, 5,000 feet, deploy your parachute, right? And then once your parachute's out, don't worry about going, oh my God, my free fall was so bad or so bad. No, because now you got a canopy over your head. Parachute. Just focus on parachuting. And if you parachute for shit and you like stuck and it's horrible, and you come down, and then when you're at 1,000 feet from the ground, you're not worrying about nothing else but just landing that thing. You got to land it as best you can somewhere safe. And you get on the ground, you land it. You're not worrying about going, oh, that was the worst exit, the free fall. You're going, okay, I'm going to pack my shit and I'm going to do it again.
Beautiful.
Right?
Yeah. Do you think that applies to life too, where people jump way too many steps ahead of something and they have too much fear around something?
Yeah, because so it comes back to everything I was just saying, right? Like self-trust and the fear. The fear happens because if I'm in the aircraft and I'm worrying about how I'm going to land, if I'm worrying about because sometimes when you jump out 20 people, so you got all these canopies coming in to landing at the same time, it can be a bit like it's like traffic at the drop zone. So you got to watch out for people coming next to you, under you, and all this stuff. If I'm thinking about that, if I'm thinking about, oh, well, what's the landing going to be like? Probably not guaranteed, but a high chance my exit will be shit. But that's the thing that matters the most, what I'm doing right now. But let's reverse it. If I'm not worrying about that, and I just trust myself to make the best landing when the time comes, and I can be fully focused, fully calm, and in my body right here, and do the best exit, chances are my landing will be amazing, because when the landing comes, I'll be just landing, instead of worrying about the exit, instead of worrying there. So I've traveled nearly 50 countries in the world, and people ask me often, Morgan, what's the best place you've ever been? And I say, my best place is right here with you right now. Because I don't worry, I don't focus on anywhere else. I be right here. And then I make the decisions, I take the actions from here. The fear will only creep in, anxiety will only creep in. When people, this word anxiety is a thing nowadays. Our generation love to throw it around. It's like, well, why don't you just practice being here? You're only anxious because you're worrying about something in the future. Stop worrying. Stop worrying. Do it now. Do what you need to do now. And then when that time comes, chances are whatever you're worrying about won't even be a thing. But do the thing now and just develop a higher level of self-trust. So when the thing you're worrying about comes, you'll be able to give it your best. And then it'll probably be nice and easy. Then it'll be over like that, because a moment only lasts for that long.
Where did you learn presence and being so present in the moment?
I think just doing it wrong for so long. Being like, I don't like this feeling.
So back in your earlier days, there was, you were trying to be somewhere else?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's probably only the last few years, really. I've really started learning more about just being still and being present. Actually, no, where I first learned it was, I was building my first business from 21 till about 27, 28. And I built it like a madman. Like it was a network marketing business. And so I was hustling that super hard. I was the top income earner in the whole company under the age of 25, and being flown around, speak at this stage, all these sorts of things. And I never knew what a day off was, ever. Like, I was like, no, every single day, because one day when I'm 30, I'll be able to retire. And, then one day, like, I was nearly burning out. I never burned out because I don't think that word exists, to be honest. I just, like, it may exist for some. I choose not to let into my vocabulary. I'm like, no. I think there's unfulfillment that exists. Anyway, so my friend said to me, she's like, Morgan, you should just go and take like a week off. I'm like, what are you talking about? A week off? You can't do that, And then it went on a little bit longer. My body started rejecting everything even more. I was like, I'm so like just drained now. I'm like, I don't want to do anything. And then my mentor, one of my friends actually said to me, she's like, you were talking about having a few days off. Have you booked that trip yet? And I'm like, no, I haven't booked it yet. And she's like, book it, go on it. And she's like, I'm like, I can't yet. And she's like, well, when's gonna be the right time for you? And I'm like, it's never gonna be the right time. I'm gonna do it now. Because I'll just keep prolonging it, and it'll just never happen. So I'm just gonna do it now. I booked the trip, and I just took, I think, like 3 days, maybe 4 days off the grid. Got this little bungalow up in the forest back where we live, up in the mountain. And I deleted all my social media, and it was just me. I got like a couple bottles of wine, got some food, and I'm like, every day it was just hiking and making food and having a fire and having a glass of wine. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And I might watch a movie. I'm just going to do that. And in that space, I found the best person, who I ever loved hanging out with, which is me. I was like, I didn't know it'd be so much fun. I was like, this is sick. And I experienced this moment of like so much peace. So I was like, this is amazing. And then when I came back on the surface, I put all my social media back on, that was my biggest income week I had all year.
I heard this from so many other people. There was another guest on my podcast, same sort of thing. She took, I think, 3 days off, completely offline, came back, new clients, new money coming in. In the days off, it's like the energy somehow attracts that.
Well, yeah, it is like, I don't know how it works, to be honest. Like energetically, I don't know how it works.
Like I'm letting open. Go, the complete surrender, the non-attachment to it.
Possibly, but for me, like what I've so now what I do, I have a lot of days off, and it's funny. I just have a new mantra now. It's like the less I do, the more I make.
Oh, I love that,
and it's super true. Like I really, that's what I was saying before we recorded. I was like, I need to have a few days off because since being here in Bali, I've had quite a bit of time off. But I wanted to have more. I wanted to sort of have this whole month here just sort of like Really do nothing. But then on the flip side, I have massive goals, massive ambitions, and we're always doing huge things. We're building 2 companies right now with the biggest event I've ever thrown in my life happening in 6 weeks, 5 weeks actually. Tomorrow will be 5 weeks away. And it sort of requires me to do a few things. Like we sort of need to do some stuff. I can't just bury my head in sand. But what I've noticed time and time again, when I step back, we do make more. Like it all happens. And the only thing I can sort of put it down to is it's like just the pendulum swinging. Like we can swing like this whole world is duality. There's no up without a down, no left without a right, or whatever. So we can't just be on full force 100% of the time, always. At some point, we have to really let the pendulum swing the whole way, the other way. And I guess the key is to know how to balance it so you're not 100% either way for too long. Because I'll also know if I do nothing for too long, I turn into a lazy sack of shit. And then I'm like, oh, I don't want to go to work. And then as soon as I catch myself, I love what I'm doing. But if I've stopped all the momentum, it's harder to start again. And I'm like, So I'll always, what's in motion will stay in motion. So I do try to keep things going.
I think that's the fear for people who don't want to take a day off is like, I'm having so much momentum in my work.
Yeah.
How can I possibly take a week off when I just want to keep working?
Yeah. Well, and I'll challenge it because it's, if you love what you're doing, like, 'cause sometimes my partner will say like, oh, you're working a lot. I'm like, but you need to understand that I love this so much. Like when I'm working, I love it because I'm building something I'm really passionate about, I'm doing something I'm good at. We're always building towards something. Like we're about to have the biggest event. We've got multiple speakers coming in 5 weeks. And we have like 700 people there. It's going to be like so cool. So much fun. Then we take all the VIPs out on the yacht the next day. I'm so looking forward to that. And then as soon as it's done, I'm going to be like, oh, okay, what are we doing next year? Then I'll start planning next year's event. So it's super important to do the things you love. And what was I going to say? What were we saying before?
That fear of taking a day off because you feel like you'll lose the momentum.
Yes. So what it used to happen for me, right? So when I lived here in Bali, it's the most amazing place on earth. And there's so many things to do around here. And I lived here for 3 years and I never even once went to like Nusa Lembongan, which is, if you haven't been here, it's a really cool island, not even far off Bali. I never went to the waterfalls. We never went to Ahmed. Never went to anything like just other parts of the island, why didn't I? The reason was because I felt guilty to take time off.
I feel that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in that spot right now.
Right. So this is what happened for me. I was like, when I'm working, all I want to do was be at the beach or explore and adventure and live my life. Because I've created an incredible life. I was financially free by 23. I lived in Mexico at 23. I just chilled and surfed and ate tacos. All right. I could have just kept doing that, but I didn't. So when I was working, I was like, I just want to do the stuff that my soul was wanting. But then when I would do those things, I'd feel guilty that I should be working. I was like, what on earth is happening here? And it took me a little while to sort of really figure it out. And this really sort of led to a lot of the stuff I teach now, which everything I teach now is literally the method of how I've got to where I am, really. And that's why it keeps evolving because every week I learn more things and I do more things. Sometimes what I teach 6 months ago, I say it's not right anymore. It's wrong, But it all comes down to our values. This is why I believe that burnout does not actually exist. Because if we're living a life in according with our true north and our values, that is what we're programmed to do. That is what brings us most joy. When we're living a life in our values and our true north, that actually gives us energy. It gives us motivation. It excites us. And if you ever catch yourself doing things that drain you, that is a key. That is things that's not for you. So we're trying to do things. So maybe we're taking them from social norms. Oh, you should do this. You should do that. You should. Anything that's in our vocabulary where we should do it, we should just cut it all out, right? Because if you should, you'll just shit all over yourself and you'll have a shitty quality of life, right? But when we catch ourselves doing things like, well, I should do that. It's like, well, according to who? Where did that idea come from? And a lot of the time, especially this day and age, people are trying to hustle online because they see the Instagram lifestyle and they may be building a business that's not for them. But they're like, oh, they should be doing it. Why? Like success should be easy. It should be easy and simple if you do the things that are in alignment for you. So my highest values is love, success, and fun. So when I'm doing things that make me feel successful, I'm feeling in alignment. So when I'm growing my business, I'm helping people, like we're making money, planning for the future, all these things, that excites me. I love it. But on the flip side of it, I need to have fun. So when I do my business, I need to have a lot of fun doing it, right? I like to do it with people. So now I've got an amazing team. So it's good when we have meetings and stuff because like everyone's enjoying us. So that makes me have a little bit of fun. But also when I get to be here in Bali and do interviews with people like you, or just, this afternoon I'm going dancing bachata, and I'm like, that's fun for me. So now instead of choosing a life that's just work, I focus on how can I literally create a life by design that has all my values and I integrate them all together. So I've actually got a pretty strict work day now. Nothing's on my diary before 10 o'clock. This was the rare occasion I was 15 minutes late because it's just like I'm just programmed. It's like before 10, I ain't doing anything. That's the life I want. I wake up, I go to the gym, I hang out.
It's your sacred time to yourself.
Yeah, I like to just chill. And nothing usually ever after about 5. And then I just make it a mission, and because there's so many people out there like, you gotta hustle, you gotta work. Like I did it for a long time. And what I realized was I could do more in a 5-hour workday than what I did in a 12-hour workday. Because when I did a whole 12-hour workday, I wasn't as productive because I wasn't fully there. I was at the beach. I was hanging out here. I was in my mind elsewhere. But then when I go, okay, I've got 4 hours, I'm going to get all this done. And then I'm going on the beach at sunset. I would work like a motherfucker. I'd be so productive and so focused and get it all done. And then even better, when I finish it, I'd feel so good about myself for doing it. So then when I'd go to the beach, I would enjoy the shit out of being at the beach. So it's not really the guilty thing is because we're actually being unproductive with the time we're giving ourselves, and we're not appreciating ourselves really, so like but it comes from a social construct like hustle, grind culture. I'm about living a productive life. I still get more done than nearly anyone else I know, but I do it in less time. And I just make it a mission. Like when I wake up today, how can I squeeze the juice out today? How can I get the most done and still have a good 7-hour sleep? That's my goal every day. How can I have a lot of fun, do something successful, spread a lot of love, experience love, and have a good sleep.
I love that. Talk to me a little bit about your time management techniques. Like you mentioned, mornings are just gym for you. Then you have 12 to 5 or 10 to 5. It's like your work hours.
Yep. Yeah, about 10 to 5. Like I definitely haven't mastered this because I keep tweaking. I'll do things, see if I like it, but it's helped a lot now. I've got a good assistant that makes sure that I'm mostly on time for stuff, and that allows me to not have to worry about my diary. But how my weeks usually work is Monday's a deep work day. So Monday's like a CEO day for me now. So I'll actually do like meetings, management meetings, which I don't like. So I'm not going to be doing that for much longer. But I'll do things like that require my attention. I'll just address problems, fix problems straight away. Then everyone goes out and does their stuff for the week. And then Tuesdays for me is also a pretty deep work day where I'm doing things I've got to produce and whatever else. And then Wednesdays, so Mondays, Tuesdays for me is usually the biggest work days. And then Wednesdays, I usually chill. Nothing happens before 12 o'clock. Wednesdays for me, when I'm back home, is usually like go play golf in the morning, go on the jet ski, go do something fun. Whatever I feel like doing. It's just it's a play day. So I actually, a thing that I put in that changed the game for me was giving me guilt-free time to enjoy my life. And when I put that in my diary, that's when everything changed actually. Because I'd actually put in, okay, instead of just having an open day, because I had a life of freedom, I wanted to create a life of freedom, I got it. And then what I realized was real freedom comes from structure, which was funny because the opposite of freedom is structure. I was like, well, if I want to have freedom, I need to have some structure around my life. So I've done that. So Mondays, Tuesdays is deep work, half day Wednesday, half day Thursday, because my girlfriend doesn't work Thursdays, so we spend the morning together. But then Thursdays usually for me is like creative days. So I do podcasts, I do videos, content. Friday's the same. Saturday is just sort of a catch up. Anything that hasn't been done for the week, I'll play catch up. I'll get some stuff done. Then Sunday for me now is religiously I'm off. Like I have a guilt-free day off. And if I want to work, if I do work, it's because I want to. I've got time and I'm like, because I just like doing it. Like I am sort of always on because I never want to go, it's my day off. because it's not. I don't like to look at it as a day off. It's like it's just my days are always on. It's just a different thing I'm doing today. Today might be a fun thing for me. It might be going on a date day. It might go here. It might do something else. But if I want to have a meeting with someone as well, I'll do that too.
Now, when you take a few days off or a week off, does that change? Obviously, it changes your schedule. Does it change the momentum or the flow of things when you come back from that?
No. I love doing that. So I'll try to do that every 90 days. So I'll try and do a time away by myself. So I'll do it minimum 3 days, 3 to 5 days usually. I'll delete all my social media. I'll get a place just by myself. And I just take a book to read and a book to write in. And usually like that's my time. And I just do the combination of like, how can I have a lot of fun? I'm just gonna have a lot of fun here. This is for my soul. It's like a soul rejuvenation time and a celebration time. Like there's no budget on these trips, so I'll eat anything I want. Like that's just the thing. It's like it's literally a trip for me. So I'll go to the most expensive restaurants. I'll go stay at nice places, and what else to do? So everything's turned off, and then I usually plan. Usually after the first 1 or 2 days, listening to books and stuff. Usually the last 1 to 2 days of the trip, I get super creative and I get ideas and I plan the next 3 months and I just get heaps of great stuff. So I've done that for the last 2 years, and now I sort of run my life in blocks of like 12 weeks, sort of roughly 12 weeks. It's not,
I love that.
Yeah.
How do you manage the amount of inputs that you get? Because you run a podcast, you run events, you probably have people emailing you, messaging you every day, inviting you to things. You have your social life, you have your relationship. How is that? How do you balance like all the inputs? I'm really curious, and keep the train rolling, but also keep yourself sane.
Yeah, it's a good question, man. That is a really good question, because we've got another company now as well. So I run 2 companies, and inside of one company, we literally have multiple. Like they could all be multiple companies, because I run 7 different events, 8 different events. So every single event is like a business. It's just hectic. And the podcast, and there's so much stuff happening. And then my girlfriend, another business. So how do I think the first thing I love every single thing I do. So I'm actually genuinely inspired by it. It excites me because it brings back to our true north. So the true north is what I help people really discover, like what's theirs. And I got this I was talking to Les Brown, right? And I said to Les, and I go, do you really believe that everybody can live their dream life? And he's like, that's why we're here. He's like, 400 trillion chances to 1 of you being born. He's like, you're not here by accident. He's like, you're here to live out your dreams. And it made me really think about it. I was like, so everyone literally has been put here for a unique purpose. Now that might be to be the next Steve Jobs, or it might be to be the best barista on earth. But whatever it is, you got to discover that and then lean into that. Because if yours is to become the best barista, you will be most at peace and most at joy, most excited in your life, on purpose in your life, when you're making coffees. Now, if that is what lights you up, then how's that a problem? Like, go for it. Become the best one on earth. And then if you're the best at anything, you get paid accordingly for it. So you should also do that. So everything I do is I'm actually living in my true north, which is learning and teaching. I love teaching and I love learning and I love business. I love business strategy. So all these things are a part of that. But nothing, I wouldn't be able to perform at the level I do. A friend said this to me once. He said, elite athletes can perform at the level that they can on the field because of what they do when they're off the field. And I really believe that's the thing. So I'm pretty tight with my time that I give to get things done. And then here's the time, I'm going to maximize it. And my days are usually just back to back, like heap stuff. But then once it's finished, it's done. And then I do my stuff. Because the time when I'm off doing my stuff, I'm there, I'm present, I'm enjoying it, and it's filling up my cup. So then when I'm ready to be back on again, I can just smash it like an athlete. But then once I just have the game's finished today. Like I used to work till like midnight every night. And then now I don't work past 6. Me and my girlfriend watch a movie nearly every night.
And do you find you're more productive this way?
Yeah, I'm way more productive because I actually have time to go, no, I'm going to turn my brain off. And watching a movie for me has just been the best. I just put a movie on, my brain's off. It's not thinking, it's not doing anything, and we just sit and we chill and be together. And because if we're doing anything else, because we have a company together, we're talking about business, we're on, which is fine. But sometimes I like to just turn my brain off. But it's funny, and just doing all these things guilt free. That's been the biggest thing, because I believe for so long that you couldn't do any of this stuff. You can't watch TV, you can't do this, and I was like, well, hang on, but I'll pay devil's advocate with it. What got me to where I am now is not what I do now. Like, you gotta get the plane off the ground, and if I came,
and that takes days and days and days of working till midnight.
yeah, years sometimes. Like I was 21 years old, started my first business. I was working. I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd leave the house by 5. On the job, no, so I'd be up at 3:30 on the job by 5. An hour drive to work every day. Okay, and then would work 12 hours. Finish at 5. And I'd drive an hour to an hour and a half home back in the traffic. I'd go to the gym. I'm home now, eating dinner maybe 8:30. And then I would use that time from about 8:30, 9 o'clock to midnight to build my side hustle. Then I'd sleep for 3.5 hours. And I'll do that for Monday through Thursday. Friday, I would allow myself to have a bit more of a sleep. But then Saturdays, Sundays, I'd work my business again. And I did that for a space of about 8 to 9 months, and that took me out of my job. But that was me getting the plane off the ground. If I came home and watched Netflix every day, not going anywhere. It's like I'm putting 20% throttle in. And that's what I see a lot happening these days. People are like, oh, I've got to respect my body. Yeah, sure. But like, how bad do you want it? Like, the younger you are, the more you can push your body. The more you can find your limit, right? Find your limit. You should really find. There's too many people just soft these days where they're like, oh no, but I need to do an hour of breath work in the morning and I need to meditate and all this shit. Man, maybe just give that up for a year and work your business. So then you can quit your job and buy back all this time. Then you can fucking breathe for 6 hours a day if you like. Right? It's like, that's what I did. Like, I wanted to surf more. I wanted to, go out to dinners more. So I wanted to travel more. So what I did, I stopped doing those things for a bit so then I could have it whenever I wanted in the future. So what got you to where you are won't be the thing that gets you to where you need to go. And what got me to where I am right now is not the thing I do right now, because now I'm doing a different thing to get me to a new level. The energy that really got me to where I am now is really get the plane off the ground energy. Now I'm focusing on how can I make sure this plane never stops. It's different. It's like I gotta repair the plane. I gotta look after it. I gotta put good crew on the plane. How can we get some other planes up here to refuel this plane? And then it's like, oh, if we want to go to a new altitude, yeah, let's all push it, get to a new altitude. But then once we get there, how are we going to celebrate it? And all these different things. It's such a different level. But if the plane ever hit down the ground again, the first thing I do is probably back to 10-hour, 12-hour days, just grinding hard, 6 months, 12 months till it gets off again. So back to the question of how I sort of sustain it would be, first thing would be, I do the things I love. So it actually brings me energy rather than takes it. And then I've become pretty damn good with my calendar now. Like, I'm pretty structured. If it's not in my diary, I don't usually do it. And then every single day I'll actually just write down a list of, like, I'm a list guy. I love lists because I know it gives you dopamine. You write something on your list, you cross it off, you're like, oh. So I'll even, if I do stuff that's not on my list, I'll write it down and then cross it off. And I'm like, ugh. And it just gets me going. But I'll just circle the top 3 things. My bare ass minimum. So I call it my BAM. So what's my 3 things today? My absolute bare ass minimum. If everything else goes to shit and I don't get these things, the rest of it done, but I just get these 3 done, I'm stoked. What are they? I circle them, and as soon as they're done, everything else is an absolute bonus. Sometimes I'll finish it by 2 o'clock, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna chill. Like, I've deserved it. I don't need to. Like, I'm in a marathon. I don't need to sprint anymore. So that's a big thing. And the last thing would be stress conditioning. Like, if you're exposed, stress exposure treatment, I think that's what it's called. They do this in the military. So they'll, like, in the elite, like Navy SEALs and stuff, they'll expose them to high levels of stress and threat over and over and over and over and over and over, so their bodies just accept it. And there's this business coach in Australia. and he was giving this example. He trained with the Ukrainian elite forces like a long time ago. And they're over there and they're doing like all this gnarly shit to them all week long to expose their body to tremendous amounts of stress so that eventually their body can just cope it. Because if you get exposed to this much one time, it'll blow your nervous system out. And then eventually when you come back down to it, you're like, oh, but you'll come back down to a level that was a little bit higher than what it was. So if you keep doing it, it'll just like this, then your nervous system can expand and actually withhold a lot more, right? And also when our nervous system, our cells are just held up with so many things. So the more work we do on ourselves, we release trauma, shame, guilt, all this negative shit that we're holding on to. We release this. We've got a bigger and stronger container to withhold more things as well. But he goes, they did this for a whole week or maybe 2 weeks. And then they're all sitting in there having dinner. They're sitting there having dinner and these dudes bolt in, like smash the door open, kick the door open. And they're wearing balaclavas, AK-47s. And they grab them, throw them up against the wall, and they're all speaking in Ukrainian. He's got no idea what's going on. He's like, what the fuck? And he thought they were getting like a prank. And he's like, we'll just sort of relax about it. Like they were just bolted in and they put a gun right in my face. And when the gun got in my face, he's like, I just started laughing. He's like, I thought it was like, they're definitely pranking us. But I saw down the end of the barrel and I saw his eyes through the balaclava and they were just black. And he's like, I could see that he was not fucking around. And he's like, that's when I knew it was serious. And then what happened was they ended up just leaving. Like whatever happened, I forget why. They talked, then they left. They ran out of the room. They closed the doors and they just sat back down and finished eating. They always had a laugh about it. And he's like, everyone's just relaxed. They were calm. And
Because they're so used to it.
because they were used to it.
Yeah.
Right? They were used to just like wild stuff. And so they was like, huh, that was crazy. So their bodies could just accept it more. And then what actually happened was that was a legit terrorist group, but they just went into the wrong room. They were looking for somebody else. Right? And they came in to actually grab somebody else. And they found that out later. And he's sharing this, but it's like that makes a lot of sense. As people in business, to get exposed to stress as often as possible is actually a good thing. And people try to avoid stress. Just get better at managing it. Get better at actually, like I told you, like the breathing exercise. It's three things that will control our emotional state. First one is things we focus on. If we're focusing on things that are not going right, we're going to, worry. We're going to get afraid. We're going to be stressed out or whatever. So that if we focus on things, we're going to feel it in our body. All right. The second thing is our language and meaning. So the things we're actually saying to ourselves, like our language is one of the most powerful things. So if I often say like my 3-day event goes for 40 hours across 3 days, right? And on day one, I push people a little bit and they're like, I'm tired. And then I start teaching this stuff. And because if they say things to themselves like, I'm tired, our brain will then just go and go, well, what am I going to focus on now? I'm going to focus on having no energy. Okay. And then the third thing is our body then follows our physiology. So our body will follow. Okay, well, I'm focused on being tired. So I'm saying I'm tired, so I'm going to focus on not having energy. So my body's going to go, how do I do the thing of not having energy? Oh, I know. Like this. I'm going to sit like this. Or I could be like, no, I have so much energy. I'm energized and I'm excited. Then our brain goes, oh, how can I focus on having energy? Oh, I have energy. And our body will actually follow. I'm going to have more energy. It's going to sit up. So they're the three things that will control our emotional state. And stress is a state. So if we're focused on, if we're stressed, our body's usually like this. All right, it's tense. We're focused on things that are usually happening right now that are not working, or right. Instead of just choosing to be, how can I focus on just enjoying the process and being relaxed, being calm, and doing it? That's the way to sort of get through it. And how I really regulate the stress is with the third part, the physiology, is with my breathing. That I said, like, so I do it when I'm on a plane. So, no, actually, I'll do all three. I'll do my breathing. I'll calm. Then I focus on what's the next step. That's it. Just the next step. And then I'll say something to myself, just like, let's go. Let's get it.
I love it. When you talk to young people, how do you help them find their true north?
We have a test. So people go through a test, like a whole bunch of questions, about 20-something questions, I think. And really it's to sort of audit your life. But if people want to sort of do it now, it's super quickly to sort of ask yourself the questions of like, What are some things that give you energy? Like, where do you get your energy? Because here's the thing. Whatever gives us energy is made for us. So we've all been...
It's part of our DNA. It's part of our...
Yeah, it's the things that excite us. It's things that are just truly meaningful for us at a super deep level. So let's say, for example, do you like... do you party at all or no?
Personally, no.
No. Perfect. So if I said to you, hey, come out tonight at 11 o'clock, we're going to go dance some salsa till 5 o'clock in the morning. You want to come?
Not super compelling to me.
Not super compelling. You're probably like more drained. You're probably like,
do I have to do this? Yeah.
But what if I said to you, hey, I've got a group of scientists that have been studying plant medicine for the last decade coming from Peru. And they're here, but they're getting here at 11 o'clock and we're doing this where there's only 5 people allowed to come. Do you want to come?
Hell yeah.
Right? Now you're like, oh, I've got it. 11 o'clock, that's easy. I can do that.
Yeah.
This is exciting. So we'll get energy from the things that are actually meaningful for us. So for me, I don't like partying either. But I like dancing because I like learning. So for me, I'm like, oh, if I can learn a new skill, okay, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll come learn these things. So the things that give us energy, we've all been sitting at home 9 o'clock at night, Friday night, and we're like, I'm just gonna chill. Netflix is on, someone texts us, like exactly like that. Someone texts you and say, hey, come out partying tonight. And you're like, dude, nah, I'm fucked. I got no energy, I'm done. And then that one other person messages you, and you're like, hey, we're going to do this. You want to come? You're like, oh, yes, I've got so much energy. I'll be there right away. And you wake up and you're there, boom. So like what happened? You didn't drink a cup of coffee or nothing. You were just like, oh my God, yes. There's also been things like, what do you spend your money on? There's certain things where I'm sure, you've probably looked at in your life and be like, oh no, I don't have the money for that. And then something else comes along right after. It's probably cost double that. And you're like, oh yeah, that's cheap, done.
Mm-hmm.
Because the things we spend our money on are things that are meaningful to us, usually. The things that we like to study and read about, usually things that are meaningful to us. The things that give us energy are things that are usually pretty meaningful to us. So when I did this whole analysis, the things that give me the most energy is learning, teaching, and business. So if we're talking about business strategy, any sort of business, I love it. I drive around, I look at cafes, and I'm just looking at the prices, and I'm just always thinking, I'm like, I just want to learn about it. It just excites me. But there's other people that'd be like, I'd hate that, but that's what makes me unique. That's what makes them unique, So some people, their true north might be coffee, right? Like you have a huge obsession on mushrooms, right? Like it's probably quite up there, like plant medicine or something along those lines, maybe quite high up there for you, why you're so obsessed on it and wanting to learn it. But, to really create something extraordinary, you've got to have a healthy level of obsession. Like Elon Musk has got to be obsessed with, innovation. He's got to be obsessed with Mars. I don't know. He's got to be obsessed with some sort of stuff that makes him do the crazy shit he does. Because I wouldn't want to do that. Why would you want to spend... He built PayPal, had all this money, could have retired, fell off the face of the earth forever, lived a great life. But instead he risks all of it to start Tesla. Because it's got something in there has to be super meaningful for him to actually want to do that. So that's really the main thing. So we have a test, you go through the test, then you'll sort of spit it out and you get your top 2 or 3. And then I call that your true north. You plug that into the icky guy. That's the things you love. Follow the things you love, then match it up with the things that you're really good at already. Find what does the world need that involves things you're good at and the things you love. What's the world need? And then how can you get paid a shitload of money for doing that? You do that, you live an incredible life, right? Live an incredible life. Find a way to sort of blend in, if you're doing that on purpose, then with your values, right? So the thing, our values, one of the deepest psychological things we have inside of us, right? Things that we actually value at a deep level, things that are most important to us. Like I said, mine's love, success, and fun. So I plug all this into my Ikigai. So as long as what I'm doing is loving, I'm spreading love, giving love, experiencing love, having impact, doing cool things, being successful and having a shitload of fun, I'll never stop.
Is there a place where people can do that test?
No. Well, at my event, it's in our booklet. Yeah. If people want to message it, I'll do it. Because I could just we'll have the program some sort of way in my business. So if people do want to hit us up, just hit us up on Instagram at Morgan T. Nelson. mention this podcast and be like, "Can I do the True North test?" And I'll grab it for you and
That
send
would
it
be
to you.
so dope.
Yeah, we can do that.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
What did you learn from Jim Rohn, and how has he impacted your life?
Ooh. Why do you ask Jim Rohn?
Well, I heard there was a CD from Jim Rohn that changed your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I asked. Where'd you hear that one?
We do our research here.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, so my buddy gave me a Jim Rohn CD when I was 21. He's like, start listening to this. It went for 56 minutes. And my drive to work every single day, I think, was like 52 minutes, something like that. It was something like that. I got to work every day with a few minutes spare, and I was listening to it. And I'd listen to it every single day for about 3 to 6 months or something, and it just ingrained in my soul.
Do you remember the name of the CD?
It was literally building your network marketing business with Jim Rohn, because Jim Rohn used to be huge in Herbalife.
Ah, okay.
Right? I didn't build a Herbalife business, but I built another network marketing business. But it was just sort of get onto this guy, and he started dropping all these bombs, and I was like, "This is incredible. It's amazing." But the biggest thing would be, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better.
Yes, I love that.
That was the biggest thing. And because back then when I was 21, I was a big victim. I was like, everything that was happening in my life was shit. A few years before that, I attempted suicide. I was on a heap of drugs. I was drinking every single day. I was super violent. I was getting arrested on weekends. I just had so much built up anger and resentment towards everything. And I was just sort of pissed off at everything, that things wasn't going the way I wanted. And I wanted to be more successful at 21, right? I wanted to be typical 21-year-old, wanted to be super successful and further ahead than what I was. And then I heard that, and it's like, don't wish it were easy, wish you were better. Like, the same wind blows on us all, right? The wind of opportunity, the wind of disaster, the wind of struggle. It blows on all of us. Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. So don't wish that the wind will slow down, wish for a bigger sail. I was like, fuck, how do I get a big sail? I'm alone. I'm going to study. I'm going to get educated. I'm going to learn personal development. And over the last 9 years, I've invested probably over $250,000 now in personal development, professional development. I've got a master's certification in, I'm a master trainer of neuro-linguistic master hypnotherapist. I've studied neuroscience. I've done a lot of shit now. So when it comes to the brain and human psychology, I know pretty damn well why people do the things they do now, why they are where they are, and the things they need to do to get to where they actually want to go. But it all really started from that CD. It's like, if you want, and that was the biggest thing. So keep, working on yourself and wishing that you were just better, wishing that you were stronger instead of, so it really helped me focus on what are you focusing on? You've been oh my God, life's so shit, I wish it was easy for me. Or going well, I just wish I was a better person to withhold this. And now I tell a lot of people that come through our programs, it's if you're a level 3 person and you're facing a level 5 problem, is it a big problem? Everyone's like, yeah, it's a huge problem. Okay, well, what if you're a level 8 person, level 5 problem, big problem, small problem? They're like, no, it's a small problem, but it's the exact same problem. So the only thing that changes, you become better. So the goal should be to become the best version of you possible. Because here's the thing, there's going to be shit come every single day for the rest of your life. One time, my girlfriend said to me, she's like, what are you doing today? For my work. She goes, what are you doing today? I said, what do you mean? She's like, what do you got on? I said, what I'm doing today is just handling any bullshit that comes on my desk. And there's going to be a lot of it. Because every fucking day, there's shit. There's just things that haven't gone wrong. This broke, this stopped, this person, this, that. And I'm just like, oh. I expect it. I expect problems. And then I just do my best to go into them and fix them. I don't, there's never a day where I'm like, oh my God, I didn't expect this problem. I'd be like, oh, right on timing. That's just life. There's always going to be things that are going to try and slow us down. And
to see the problems as gifts from the universe, as something that trains your soul.
Learnings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've learned a lot. And if people can reframe their perception of failure, there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. So the more that we actually attempt things, the more opportunities we have to learn from the things that don't work. And my goal is just to fail as fast and as hard and as frequently as I possibly can. Because I learn way more. I was talking with my friend yesterday, she's about to start running her own event. I was telling her all this stuff, so make sure I do this. And I said, you know what? Just go run your event. because you'll learn the most. Do it. And at the end of it, you'll be like, this sucked, that sucked, that didn't work, won't do that again. And that's just the best way. But a lot of people don't.
They try to run simulations in their mind.
But they won't go and do the things they want to do because they think failure is bad, right? So then they won't do it. Instead of looking and go, well, actually, I want to fail so I can learn how to make it better next time. And this comes from school. Because when we're in school, think about when you failed, what happened?
We're punished.
You got to resit the test. Parents get called. Even you might get put down a class. Something happens, right? And then they start to put a lot of fear into you. Well, if you fail this, you're not going to be able to study the subject. You can't go to college, university, or whatever. So then what happens is we start to have an association with failure that if we fail, then we'll get punished. We're a bad student. Blah, 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 blah. So then we come to the real world, and when we have to throw ourselves our own free will into a potential failure, we tend to not want to do it before we want to do it because we think, well, if we fail, we'll be punished. We're bad. We're stupid. But that's one of the reasons why school really sets us up for ultimate failure, is because to attempt nothing is the ultimate failure, right? Which is the only time you should be punished, is to actually do nothing. But in the real world, the more times you fail, the more successful you are. And the more times you actually copy people, the more successful you are as well. See, school doesn't set us up for anything other than testing how good your memory is. It's really about it. It's like, we're going to test you based off this study to see how good you can remember the textbook. Not based off how creative you are, not based off your ideas, not based off your work ethic, your attitude. We're going to test you off your ability to remember things, then we're going to give you a score, and the score is going to tell you how smart you'll be in life, and that's going to determine what you can go study for the rest of your life. And it sucks. Like, I failed my way through school. Like I just got by. I got in Queensland, where I'm from, they give you a score from 1 to 25. 1's the best, 25's the worst. And based off what you get, you can go study certain things at university. I got 21. So anyone over like a 15 is bad. Like, you're not going to study in nothing if you get half or a 15, 16. So I got that. And
how did you feel at that time?
I was kind of like, I was a bit of a rebel. So I was like, well, good, I don't want to go to uni anyway. Like, fuck that, Like, I'm just going to travel, and you guys are all idiots because, like, you're giving up your life. I'm going to travel, I'm going to have fun. So I went and traveled, and I came back and become a carpenter. I just got an apprenticeship as a carpenter because that's what they told me, actually. They said to me in grade 10, they said, your grades aren't good enough. Here's what we recommend you do. Go become a tradie or a mechanic or something like that where you can work with your hands. Because, don't, and they said to me, they go, we recommend you don't do anything in reading, writing, journalism, or speaking because you're not good at any of them.
Isn't that amazing how they instill what you can and can't do in life?
Yeah.
And here you are, speaker, writer,
I've spoken
podcaster.
To biggest crowd, 6,000 people at once.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you speak every week on your podcast.
Yeah. And we have a global platform. We've got like over 100 countries. People listen to us now. My sole career is speaking and training. Still can barely read and write, but doesn't mean anything, right? But for my first early years out of school, I really did think it did. Like, yeah, it was definitely like I really didn't think I was smart, but I knew I had this, because I was a boxer, I used to do Muay Thai. So I've always had this sort of attitude where it's like, it's not over until I win. Like, you may beat me in the fight, but I'll come back with a fucking bat. I'll win, right? So I always sort of had that mentality. It's like, yeah, okay, I can't get into uni or nothing, but I don't want to anyway, but I'll still figure it out. And then 5 years later, financially free, living in Mexico.
I want to ask you, when you were 19, you tried to take your own life. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask you, what was going on in your life at that moment that brought you to that point? And how did you navigate that moment, and how did it serve you for the rest of your life?
So I was a carpenter. So I was an apprentice carpenter. My first day on the job site, I get there, high-vis shirt, boots, hard hat, lunchbox, all this shit. And 9 hours into the workday, my boss comes up to me and says, it's your first day today, you can go home early. I was like, this is an early day. What's a normal day? He's like, usually we do like 10, 11 hours. I go, how many days a week do we do this? And he's like, 5 to 6 days. And I asked myself the question. I said, for how many years of my life am I going to do this? And the answer was until the day I died. It's like, wow, this actually sucks. Like, this is what life is. And it's like it literally felt like I went through the conveyor belt of school, having all this fun, got to the end and just go, all right, here's your uniform, go. I was like, oh, this is life? 6 days a week, 10 hours a day? This sucks. There's no room for fun. So I quickly looked at, I was like, what do I need to do to make more money so I can just travel? So I looked around the job site. I saw my boss, who was running the carpentry gang. He was kind of young. He was like 30 and making okay money. And then one day this guy drives on the job site with a BMW, brand new BMW, like a $200,000 car. And he gets out wearing like a business shirt. And I was like, who's this guy? And everyone's like, oh, just keep working. That's the developer. That's like the big boss. And I'm like, I want to be him. How do I get there? So I started asking questions. Okay, well, you got to finish your apprenticeship. You got to run your own carpentry gang. Then you're going to get a builder's license. Then you need to start getting some money behind you. Then you can be a developer. So I was like, boom, that's my goal. I'm going to do that. I'm going to retire by 50. That's it. Done. So I set that as the goal. So anything that came along the journey, I was just taking. So when we ran out of work on the Gold Coast, we went up to another place, North Queensland, more north of Australia. Really hot. It's like 42, 43 degrees every single day, which is, I don't know, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, you're Canadian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So degrees?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Celsius.
I don't know why, man. USA, the only countries they just like to make shit all different. So it's super hot. We're working now 14 hours a day, 15 hours a day. Because there's more sunlight up there now. It's like up earlier and sets later. And we're working 7 days a week for 3 weeks at a time. And I'm getting paid $7.50 an hour. And it was mental. Like, it was just mental. But in my head, I was like, I need to do it. I need to save money. I need to finish my apprenticeship. I don't like this, but it's going to get better. In 4 years when I finish my apprenticeship, it's going to be better. And that's what I was thinking. Delayed gratification.
Also not enjoying the journey like we were talking about earlier.
I was hating it.
Just looking at the destination.
Yeah, I was hating it. And then everyone around us was drinking every single day. So I started to realize that the only way, what were they doing to cope? They were drinking every single day. They were taking drugs in the morning to wake up every day, drugs in the afternoon to keep going, drugs at nighttime to come down and crash out. And then because the power of your environment, I just started doing all that as well.
What kind of drugs were they taking?
Like cocaine in the morning, like coke all day long, and then just like heavy prescription pills.
To fall asleep.
Yeah. And then like mix of, 10 bourbons by the end of the day as well, So a big concoction. But then everybody was negative. It was toxic. Anxiety was this huge thing. And back then, we're talking now, 11 years now. I just turned 30 the other month. And back then, we didn't have podcasts like this. There wasn't social media like this talking about stuff. So I was like, I had all these horrible feelings in my body. It was like just pain and anxiety, but I didn't know what it was. So I thought I was like breaking. I really didn't know. And then there was just so much pain happening, where it was like 10 months of this where I could not literally do anything unless I was on drugs or drinking. And then, the pain got so high, the self-esteem was so low, my self-confidence was so low, and I really lost the vision of the future and all hope of everything. And I just thought that it'd be more painful to actually stay here than it would be to die. So that's why I literally tried to take my life. And the biggest thing I learned from it was nothing will ever be more important than my own happiness. So I stopped it. That's when I was like, I'm not doing this apprenticeship anymore. But I was so committed to that because I was like, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to get it done. And then I was like, I don't give a fuck about it. I'm going back home. I'm going back to the Gold Coast where I like to live with my friends, where I can go out to the clubs on the weekend if I want to. I can actually enjoy the journey along the way to the life I want as well. And I don't have to sacrifice this. And that's when I really started to discover the 4 pillars, right? Which like the first one, and this is what every single thing I teach now. The first pillar is the right environment, because I came back down to the Gold Coast. I changed my environment. I stopped the drugs. I stopped drinking. I stopped doing all this stuff. And I started getting around people that actually had the life I wanted. And lo and behold, introduced me to the second pillar, which was the right vehicle. So my friend one day says, my friend Reese, he was very happy, very rich, traveling a lot. He was only 24. He had multiple houses, doing like good stuff. So I reached out. I was like, dude, how do you do this? Like, what do you what's going on? And he's like, well, actually, I just started this online business. Do you want to come check it out? I was like, sure. Like, I want to get into entrepreneurship. I want to do something. And so I got along to this network marketing thing. I thought it was a scam. I thought it was all this bullshit, and I had no idea what it was. I went in, but I saw everyone in there that was actually talking about impact, income, living an incredible life, giving back, traveling, retiring their parents, doing all this stuff. And I was like, I don't care what you guys are doing here. I'm in. Like, I'm keen, So then one of the things, I met my first early mentor then, which we've become very good friends now. And he said to me one day, because I asked him, I'm like, how do you like get over the worry of what people are going to think of you? And he's like, stop taking advice from broke and unhappy people. Period. He's like, if you want to trade positions with them, don't listen to them. And I've stuck to that. Because like, there's always people that try and, oh, you shouldn't do this.
This reminds me of something Kat Norton, who runs the Miss Excel brand.
Mm-hmm.
She talked about how the biggest piece of advice she got that helped her was stop taking advice from anyone who has not achieved what you're looking to achieve. It's like, if they haven't done it, don't take advice from them.
Yeah. Especially, it's like you've listened to the right people for the right things. Because I've also got people in my life that aren't as successful, but they're really happy.
Uh-huh. So you could ask them about happiness.
Yeah.
But maybe not about business.
Well, here's the thing. Ask everyone about anything, but take what you want and leave what you don't.
Yes.
And so the other day we were up in Ubud, sitting with a Jakartian, doesn't make sense, a Javanese healer. And, some would argue he's not successful. And the amount of insights I got from an hour conversation with him was gnarly. I was like, whoa.
The wisdom.
Yeah. Because it's just different. But like, so if I just listened to people because they were more successful than me, I would block out a lot as well. Because just because they're more successful doesn't mean that's someone you should still listen to. Do you know the Rockstar games, Grand Theft Auto? I was at dinner with my girlfriend one night on the Gold Coast, and over to us is this guy. Yeah, he would have been 60, in his 60s, old dude, white hair, big fat guy, super loud, sitting with like a 20-year-old girl at dinner, and like his little sugar girl, right? And he's going super drunk, carrying on, and he comes over to our table and he's like, I forget how he introduced himself, but he came up like really sort of like just a bit weird, and he's carrying on. He's like, and he's pulled the chair up, actually sits down. Hey guys, he starts looking at my girlfriend. Oh, you're very beautiful, like super sleazy and stuff. And I'm just laughing, having a laugh. And he's like, do you know who I am? I'm like, tell me. And he's like, Google my name. You can Google my name. This is my name, Sir this or whatever. And I'm like, okay, dude. Google him. He comes up with a couple stuff. I said, oh yeah. He goes, do you know Grand Theft Auto? I said, yeah. He goes, Rockstar Games? I said, yeah. He goes, that's my company. I'm like, no shit. He goes, yeah, I'm a billionaire. I said, no shit. And then so I wanted to test him, so I asked him some questions about Grand Theft Auto, and he answered every single one. I was like, dude, no old dudes get none of those questions. And he's like, yeah, it's my company, and then I ended up selling it, and I'm a billionaire, and blah, 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 blah. And in my head, I was like, I did get his number, actually. I said, hey, let's connect. Actually, what I said to him, I said, that's cool, but I said, do you know me? And he goes, no, who are you? I said, Google me. I was just fucking him. I was fucking with him. And then he goes, oh, yeah. And he Googles my name, and I'm actually all over Google. I didn't know. And so you can Google me, and there's like heaps of shit everywhere. I was like, oh, would you look at that? And he's like, who are you? I said, oh, wow. But the point of this story is I got his number because I was like, he's a billionaire. I want to learn from him. So I said, let's go play some golf. And then I left in that night, and I was like, actually, I don't want to hang out with that guy. I don't want that life. Like 60-something, miserable, taking a 20-year-old, and like, I know I've also said, like, I'm like, if I'm single at 60, I'll probably date a younger woman as well. Like, why not? So I've always looked at older men like that and been like, do whatever makes you happy, sure. But the way he was, I could tell he was a very unhappy, miserable guy. And I was like, so just because he was successful, that's not someone I'd still listen to. So one thing David said is like, don't take advice from rich and unhappy. Broke and unhappy people. Because if they're broke, they're not really going to help you. But if they're unhappy, all right, then it's the worst. But if just because they're rich doesn't mean they're happy, but maybe you could learn a thing or two about business, sure. So in the context of business, I might take some advice, right? And then you use your own moral compass sort of to be like, because, but those two sort of things, like that's the rule of thumb. I've really sort of stuck by like just listening to those sorts of people. So, yeah.
So coming back to the 4 pillars of success, you mentioned environment being the first.
Yeah. So the first one is the right environment. So there's 2 pillars to the right environment. You got the external environment and the internal environment. But our external environment will control our internal environment to some degree until you become really, really, really good at it. Because it's sort of like, if you're around 100 amazing people, your internal environment is going to be like, feel incredible. Because we're picking up all this information for our 5 senses. Things we see, we feel, we hear, we touch. It's all incredible, and we're going to feel incredible on the inside. Then what we think about, we feel about, what we feel, we do, and that's our results. So the external environment literally dictates all of your success. But what do you do? I started to challenge this when COVID happened. I was like, when we're in lockdown, and I asked myself the question, well, what am I going to do if we never ever get let out again? If I just rely on my external environment to make me happy, that's not a good strategy. So how can I create the best internal home where my internal home will change my external environment? So it's like a glass of boiling water. So if you can be a teaspoon of coffee, drop it in, and you infiltrate and you transform everything around you, that's the goal. It really comes down to being able to manage your own state on a day-to-day basis, which I talked about before. Managing your state, being an incredible, in a beautiful state, being in a place of peace and gratitude and a good energy about you. The right environment. Next one's the right vehicle, so the right thing for you. So discovering your true north and actually aligning yourself with a vehicle, like a financial vehicle or relationship or whatever it's going to be to kind of get you from where you are to where you need to go. Most people, it's some sort of business or career. The thing you do, the thing that wakes you up every day, the thing you do every day, it's got to be something that lights you up in alignment with your true north. The third one is the right timing. So it's got to be the right timing. A lot of people try to push stuff when this might not be the right timing for them yet. But then on the other side of that, if they're procrastinating because they're like, it's just not yet. When is now going to be the right time? Like, when is now the best time to completely take radical ownership of your life and go after every single thing you want? The answer is now. It's never going to be easier. It's never going to be closer because there's no straight lines in the universe. You're either getting closer to what you want or you're moving further away from it. You're not just stagnant. You're never stagnant. If you think you're stagnant, you're declining. So you might as well take some sort of action because the closest you'll ever be is where you are right now.
Expanding or contracting.
Yeah, because the longer you leave it, the further you are away.
Mm-hmm.
Like if somebody, perfect example, someone from my school reached out to me, followed a very similar path to me after school, but he never got out of it. He reached out to me about a year ago. He's like, Morgs, I see you doing all these events back in Australia. I'd love to sort of come to one. Like, I need some help. So yeah, man, here's a free ticket. You can come. Do you think he came? No, because his habits was, I don't show up to things. His habits was, I say it's scary to go and speak to people, right? So he kept doing what he was familiar with.
Also, he didn't pay the price of commitment.
So he didn't pay attention, right? If you pay attention. But even if he had come, what would have happened was he had let his life go so far without doing anything, where for him to try and catch up would be a lot of work. It's going to take a long time. But if he had decided 5 years ago, right, it's literally the compound effect. I spoke on stage with Darren Hardy, the author of The Compound Effect in Maui once.
Oh, I love that book.
Yeah, and we were talking all about this, and he was talking about, the fact that if somebody smoked one cigarette one time, they got throat cancer, would they ever do it? Of course they wouldn't. But they smoke 50 cigarettes a day over 20, 30, 40 years, then they get it. It's like, oh shit, it just gradually happens. So that's why we've got to be so clear on what are the little habits we're doing? When are we choosing comfort over discomfort? If I'm ever choosing things that are comfortable for me, I just change it straight away. Sometimes I'll brush my teeth with my left hand just because I'm like, I'm just going to do something different, just to make my brain work a little bit more. I'm not going to eat at the same cafe 2 times in a row. I'm going to pick a different one. Even if I'm not certain that the cafe, even if I know this cafe is really good food, I'm like, I'm going to go try a new one, because what if the next one's even better? Or it also might not be shit. It might be worse, but that's also beautiful, because that's what made that experience possible. It being not as good as that, So, doing things that are easy will create a hard life. Doing things that are hard will create an easy life. So the right timing really comes down to a few things: seeing the thing you want, right? Seeing the thing you want, believing, have an absolute belief that you can actually achieve it. Just like Roger Bannister, who's the first person to ever break the 4-minute mile, when everybody told him he couldn't. Everyone said, scientists, professors, doctors said, if you do it, your heart will burst out of your chest, you'll die. He did it. And then 6 weeks later, another person did it. And then another, and another, and another, and another. Now there's been thousands of people do it, because the belief got changed. People were like, damn, it's actually possible. I can do it too. But it all came down to him by actually going, I can believe that it will actually happen. I can visualize and visualize and visualize it. There's been so many studies on this as well. They get a group of basketballers, okay? They got 3 groups of basketballers. The first group, they say, we're all going to practice today, shooting perfect 3 throws all day long. Boom, 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 for 8 hours. Second group, you guys go home. No practice today. Third group, you're going to sit there blindfolded on the court and visualize shooting perfect 3 throws all day long. So they studied them. They checked out the test results a week later. The first group, who did the practice all day long, improved their skills something like 67%. The second group, who went home, didn't improve at all. The third group, who did nothing other than visualize, increased their skills something like 42%. They did nothing. They visualized it. Right? And that's what I do when I jump out of an airplane. I visualize the perfect exit, because I understand the power of visualization and literally creating it in our mind first. It's going to create that muscle memory up here, so then our body is going to be more familiar with it when it actually comes to it. So we can continually visualize the things we want. Visualize it, have the belief, because our subconscious mind doesn't know the difference if it's real or fake. That's why people can visualize right now, if they want, getting a slice of lemon and eating lemon with their mouth, and then their mouth will go like that. Unconscious mind doesn't know if it's real or fake. So we can visualize the results we want. We'll increase our vibration. The law of vibration is actually why the law of attraction works. If we can match the vibration in our body with the things we actually want, we will attract it to us. We have the belief that it's actually possible, it's certain. Then we need to take action. 4 levels of action. First one, no action. Not going to get you anywhere. Second level of action is blaming, complaining, and justifying. A lot of people love this one. They will blame other people, complain about the current circumstances, or they'll justify as to why they don't have it yet. The unfortunate thing with justifying is what happens is we raise our vibration through power of visualization, but then we justify and say, but I won't have that yet because, and it lowers the vibration right back to where it started. When we justify, but I'll do it when the kids leave school. I'll do it when this. I'll do it when I'm single again. I'll do it when I have this. And we justify and we justify. The horrible thing about this is when we justify, it actually installs a belief in ourselves, right? So if we say, well, I can't have this. Well, why not? Because this. We install a belief. The worst thing about it is we actually then believe it, because a belief is true to us. A belief is a meaning that we believe to be just absolutely true. So then we then believe it, and we rationalize on it and say, well, that makes sense then. So then I'll stop trying. The third level is some action. We just got to get into it, start building a foundation, some good habits, some good infrastructure there. And the fourth level is all out massive action. Just going. The more we do, the less we think, the less we think, the less we doubt, the less we doubt, the more we do. But the less we do, the more we think, the more we think, the more we doubt, the more we doubt, the less we do. So the thing that can literally just cease procrastination and overthinking is action in itself. Doing something. And then the fourth one is actually making the decision. So that's the third, and action's last, is to decide, right? There's that story of the guy. I think there's actually quite a few people who do this, but Colonel Cortez is in 1416, I think it was, took his ship from Spain down to Mexico to fight the Aztecs, gets down there, well outnumbered, and he tells all of his men, he's like, shoot fiery arrows at our boat, burn them down. And his men were like, this guy's gone loco. Colonel Cortez is loco. He's like, nah, shoot, set him on fire. And his men are like, why? He says, because here's the thing. We're here, we're committed, this is the decision we're made, that we're making. We're either going to win or we're going to die trying. There's no retreat. And with that level of conviction, they actually beat the Aztecs and took over. Completely outnumbered. Because a crazy thing happens when people are fully committed, when they're 100% in. But most people are 99% in. That's just like, women watching this, your man coming home to you and saying, hey, baby, I'm 99% sure that you're a woman of my dreams. Let's get married. Like, would you jump head over heels and be like, oh my God, yes, I feel so lucky? Like, no, that'd be like, what about the 1%? And then all the men are like, oh my God, I give her 99%. What more do you want? It's the same thing with our dreams. Once we go 100% committed, 100%, that's like cannonballing in the ocean, not just putting a foot in, like jumping in and then adjusting as you go. Things start to really work for us. So make now the right time and just fully commit and go for it. Then the last one is becoming the right you. So the right you is broken down into three things: the right belief system, the right value system, and the right attitude. So the right beliefs we've already sort of touched on, but the beliefs have to be in alignment with the values. You see, our conscious mind is the goal setter and our unconscious mind is the goal getter. All of us can sit down right now and consciously go, this is the life I want to create. We can visualize and be like, I want to have this, I want to do this, it's the health I want, bank I want, etc., etc. But our unconscious mind then gets to work on it. But if it's not in alignment with this, it'll work against it. I see this happen a lot. It's like one of the biggest things we do on Breakthrough Day at our event is helping people align this. And then we see things like people, one of the coolest results I saw was my friend Taylor took her business from $15,000 a month in March to by October, $105,000 in a month. She didn't change business, she changed up here. All right? Because she started to do things differently, started to accept it more, right? Because what was happening was she had this fear attached that, okay, I want this goal, but she had this belief that, well, if I achieve that, then it will mean this thing. And the thing over here was a negative thing that she didn't want. But our mind will do anything to avoid pain and seek pleasure. That's its primary function. Get away from danger, seek reward. But if we perceive that the reward will bring us pain, we won't care about that because our first goal is to avoid pain. Avoid pain at all costs. Then once we're safe, then we can get pleasure. So a lot of people stay just further enough away from pain, but it doesn't suck enough, but they're not going to go after what they want because if they believe that this will create them pain, they will stay right here. So what we do is really help people rewire their unconscious mind and get it all in alignment together. So getting the right belief systems align with their values. So the values, like I mentioned before, is some of the deepest level of, programming we have. We have our identity, then we have our values. So our values, we will do what's important for us before we do what we believe is right. This is why we saw during COVID, we saw a lot of people doing things that they just were important for them. Some people it was important for them to follow the rules. So they did it, even though they believed that it wasn't the right thing to do. But it was important for them to be a good person.
Do you think a bit of fear also plays into that? A fear of authority?
I can tell you exactly how everybody was literally brainwashed, and I'm not just saying it. Like I know how to brainwash people. We can talk into that if you want. There was a lot of programming. There was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of fear, and there was a lot of guilt and a lot of shame. Biggest motivating forces. Do this or else you'll be punished. Do this or you won't be accepted to your family's funeral. If you're not, vaccinated, we've only got X amount of people allowed at a wedding and all these sorts of things. Then it's divide and conquer, and they turn the two parties against each other. We can talk about that if you want. But people do things that are important for them before they believe what is actually right. So I saw it happen a lot of time. People and I've never even openly spoken about which side I took in COVID as well. But I like to objectively talk about everything and people can make their own decisions because who am I to also say that my decision is the right one? I think there was a lot of people actually during COVID who were so anti-COVID that probably had more toxic poison in their body than the people who got vaccinated and didn't care about it.
Interesting.
I truly believe because there were so many people that were like, what about all the people that were just raging?
Yes.
And they were so like, rah!
But they felt their freedoms were being taken away.
Yeah. I get why. I get it. But what I'm saying is they've done tests on rats where they took the saliva out of the mouth of someone who was like angry, gave it to a rat, and the rat died. So what's been proven is anger is as deadly. Like anger can create cancer. Conflict and anger will create cancer. So every disease in our body is a lack of ease. It's a dis-ease. It's created metaphysically. It's created from our thoughts, our emotions. And so I was just thinking about that. And I'm not a scientist. I haven't done studies on it, but I just threw a thought out. I really think that some people who were so anti-COVID probably had more toxicity inside of them than some people that were so like, oh, I don't give a shit, I'll get it, whatever, than whatever might have been in the jab, right?
So it's about being congruent with with your values.
Yeah, being congruent, and then not like just removing anger and aggression, really. Like,
yes.
Like we still got through COVID. We lived life how we wanted. And I wasn't angry at all. I was like, oh, we're in lockdown. Cool. I started a podcast. That's what I did.
So there's an acceptance piece as well of accepting reality and intending for
and then
something.
a little challenge. I was like, oh, how can we still travel? Good question. And we got around it and we traveled. Life still just continued for me. I started a podcast and I started a new company. So COVID was amazing. All right?
See, that's a beautiful way of making the best of a situation.
Yeah. Yeah. But so our values, beliefs, right? They've got to be in alignment. Okay. For example, let's say if one of the things, so I'll use my example. A long time ago, I used to have a belief that if I was super successful, I won't be loved and I'll be outcasted. All right? Wherever that came from, because our minds are meaning making machines, right? That's all we do. But one of my highest values was success, love and success. So love, acceptance, and then success, right? So I had the belief, well, if I'm successful, then I won't have this. But we'll do anything to avoid pain. And then one of the things on my highest away values, which we dive so deep into this, was I didn't want to be lonely. So if I've got a goal to do this and create this goal, but I believe that I was going to create the thing I don't want the most, I'll self-sabotage that till the cows come home.
Driving with the emergency brake on.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Or it's like I'll get right to the exit and just turn the car around. And so if people are experiencing self-sabotage, it's because there's a conflict inside of this. As soon as we can get this in alignment, boom. As soon as I change this, 4 months later, I had my biggest month I ever had.
How did you change it?
Changing my belief system.
Uh-huh.
So it's like,
because you wanted success, you felt like it would bring you loneliness.
Yeah.
So one was sabotaging the other.
Yeah. First key to transformational change is awareness, right? Transformational change is awareness, reinstall a new habit, and then reconditioning, right? So if I work with people one-on-one, I change limiting beliefs in like 5 minutes, and it's life-changing.
5 minutes.
Yeah. It's really fun.
How does it work?
Everything is stored in our mind in images and pictures. So if we can discover how the belief is stored in your mind, then we change the images you have in there to something that you believe is not true, then it'll be reconditioned inside of your mind to something that you believe is not true. Everything is stored in our mind through images. Our unconscious mind can only process, like, it sees symbols, colors, pictures, So beliefs, thoughts, things we like are stored in a picture. So if we can alter the picture in our mind of how we see things, we'll literally change our neuroassociation to it.
So with something like money, for example, what would be the sort of changes you could make to a picture? Let's say someone wants success, but they feel like more money will bring them stress, or they see something negative around money, more pain.
That one would be a little bit more of a complex thing, right? So like I said to you, so let's say, for example, if I just said, because not everyone should make more money for where they are in life right now. So I also believe in personal evolution. So if I taught you right now how to change something to attract more money, or make money more important, I don't know enough about you and that unique person. Like, that might cause another problem over here. So I'll investigate quite a bit to be like, well, what would happen if you had more money? There might be a limiting belief come up. So let's say if we increase the want for more money, but the limiting belief's still there, then it'll actually probably create more conflict in their life and more annoyance because the feeling and desire for money is so high, but the belief is still so strong. So what I'd need to do with that person is to change two things. So if I change the belief and increase it, fucking watch out.
Change the belief and increase the desire?
Yeah. Or if we change the values, we put values a little bit higher. But most of the time, people's values are pretty good. Like who they are is pretty good. They just have beliefs that are in the wrong place that are stopping them from actually executing on the things that are important for them. So what I did when I got access into this and I changed my belief, but everyone can do this as well, because if the first step transformational change is just awareness, because I can't do that to every single person at my event. So I do it in other ways where I can take people for a process. It takes like half an hour or something. We can do this big crazy thing where firstly they become aware of the problem, become aware of the belief. Then they create a new reassociation to it. So what's a new belief that I'd rather put in, right? They break the pattern. It's kind of like taking a CD. Remember the old CDs and you put like a little scratch on it and you try to put it back in and it doesn't play. It's like, right. So imagine we can do that with our neuro pathways. We can become aware of it. Then we interrupt the pattern with pain. Sometimes I'll get a band, right? So people can do this one. It's like a rubber band on their arm. Become aware of the limiting beliefs, any sort of limiting thought. Every time they think about it, awareness, interrupt the pattern with a band. Whoosh, pain, right? So not only will it interrupt the pattern, but it's also going to start to train your brain. Every time I think this, it associates pain to it. I don't want it. And then reinsert a new belief. Like, so, I can never be successful. Snap. I'm fucking capable of any success I put mind to, right? And really associating that, like really becoming like certain with that and feeling it in your body and over it. And it's like doing this through repetition. And eventually our brains get start to be trained because it's all through like anchoring and stuff. Like Pavlov's dogs. Have you ever heard of that story? Right? Like he pushed a doorbell and he had a piece of meat and the dogs come running and gives them meat and he keeps doing it and they'll come start salivating out their mouth. Then he pushed the doorbell, they come running and they already start salivating. There's no meat anymore. Then eventually he took all the meat away. Every time he pushed the doorbell, they come running and they start salivating. We're the exact same. That's the process of anchoring. So we can start to anchor that every time I think this negative thought, it actually triggers me to go, no, I don't want this, I want this. And we'll start to reinstall a new belief. So for so long, I would just wear a rubber band on my wrist and just go through my life. And I'd be sitting there like quiet at a cafe or something, and snap. Because as soon as one just came to my mind, I'm like, no, it's not. I'll snap it. Just to interrupt that pattern and change it. See, every single belief was a decision at some point. That's the main thing. So if you really want to do deep work, is going right back to the root cause of everything and be like, when was that decision actually made? So at some point, anyone who has a decision like, more money equals I'm a bad person. Cool, that's interesting. When did you decide that? When was that a decision you made? Oh, when I was 8 and I saw dad take all the money and blow it gambling and he turned into a monster. And then I just decided that if I had a lot of money, I'd turn into him. Boom. That's when you decided that belief. So what if we can go back there and literally rewrite that whole moment in your life? What if we can rewrite, that memory, change that belief, change that decision? And then, it's a pretty wild stuff, and to really start to sort of tap into timelines and all these sorts of things.
Yeah, can we dive into that? The timelines.
Yeah, so everything is stored, like all our memories are stored in some sort of timeline. So if you close your eyes and if you think back to when we had dinner the other night, do you remember then? Point to the direction in your head. Where was that? Point to the direction with your hands.
Over there.
And point to your future. Where's your future?
Over there.
Yeah. Open your eyes. So our whole time is stored on a timeline, right? So we can actually also use that and sort of go back and travel back in our memory, relive things. But I don't want to get too much in this one, because if people take this out of context, they can really fuck themselves up with it and reassociate to trauma and things like this. So it's I would only do this with someone like in person, or because like let's say if somebody had like a super traumatic event, or maybe even worse, they didn't know they had it and they've blocked it out. They have no memory under 5 years old, and they try to do this thing. They go back and they reassociate, and they fully relive this thing. People can get stuck in that, and that's why people can get like psychosis and stuff like this. So it's not good to just try and play with.
But with a proper guidance,
Definitely.
you can
Proper
relive a
guidance is
memory,
fine. Yeah,
rewrite
exactly.
it, revise it.
Yeah, it's like we can do deep trauma work with people in less than an hour. Like remove phobias. I removed phobia in like 5 minutes.
What is this technique called?
That's timeline therapy.
Timeline therapy.
Yeah.
So to summarize the 4 pillars of success, we've got the environment, the right vehicle,
The right timing and the right use. The last part of the right you is the right attitude. It's the right beliefs, the right values, and the right attitude. The attitude is 3 different types of people in the world. The first one is people sit there and complain about the wind. So, oh my God, poor me, the wind isn't blowing in my direction. Right? Jim Rohn also said, he's like, the same wind blows on us all, the wind of opportunity, the wind of disaster. Like, it's all blowing. It's not the blowing of the wind that will determine your destination, it's the set of your sail. So, people complain that the wind's not blowing their direction, it's not blowing my direction. And then the second person, they sit and they meditate and they get their cacao bowl out and they wait for the full moon and they just manifest and they manifest and they hope and they hope and they hope and they hope and they do the same thing over and over and over and over, hoping that the wind will change one day. They're like, well, let's just keep going this way. I just trust it will change. And then the third person, they just get up and they change the sails. Because they're like, well, what's happening right now in this moment is the wind isn't blowing in the direction I need it. I'm going to adjust my sails to work with it, to work with what is happening. And then, the wind changed again. I'm going to adjust again. I'm going to adjust again. I'm going to adjust again. You see, it's just taking radical responsibility. Like it's not your fault that you've had trauma happen. It's not your fault that you were raped. It's not your fault that you were robbed. It's not your fault that that person broke up with you and broke your heart. It's not your fault your parents weren't there for you. It's not your fault that you were put up for it. It's none of this is your fault. However, it's your responsibility to deal with the trauma and to deal with how you get to live your life now through that and heal through that and come out the other side. It's 100% your responsibility. So yes, the wind blows and you're like, shit, that fucked me up. Yep, it did. But adjust your sails and keep going. Or you just let it keep pushing you over and keep pushing you over. Like life is not fair. It's not. It's here to test you.
Of the 4 different aspects of the 4 pillars, which one do you think people have the most challenge with?
Probably the right you.
The right you.
This is a pretty complex thing because the person who got you where you are won't be the person who gets you where you need to go. So you need to continually develop a very high level of self-awareness and a good skill set to continually work on yourself and keep improving, keep growing. The other thing I'd say that people don't do, but it is easy, which is probably the number one thing. Like if they only take one thing from this and they're like, well, what's one thing I can do right now to drastically change my life? Is the right environment. Because scientists have done studies, countless studies. I'll give you my favorite one. They put 6 monkeys in a cage. In the cage, they put a ladder with bananas at the top of the ladder. And whenever a monkey would go up the ladder, they would scold the other monkeys with freezing water. Monkey goes up the ladder, they get punished. So the other monkeys beat the shit out of the monkey every time he goes up the ladder and says, stop going up the fucking ladder. Eventually, no monkeys go up the ladder. They take one out, they put in a brand new one. He goes up the ladder, he gets a shit beaten out of him. He's left wondering, he's like, hell did I just walk into? They change another monkey out, put in a brand new one. He goes up the ladder, gets a shit beaten out of him by every single monkey, including the one who just come in before. Now he's just joining in.
Who doesn't know the origin?
He's got no idea why. And they change every single monkey until eventually every monkey in the cage is a brand new monkey. Not one of them had been up the ladder and not one had been scalded with water. Now, if you were to ask the monkeys, yo, monkey, why don't you go up after your bananas? He would either say one or two things. He'd either say, well, that's just the way things have always been done around here. Or he'd say, I didn't even see that there was bananas there. Because eventually, if it becomes a thing we can't have for so long, we'll actually create a mental scotoma where we will not become aware of the opportunities. We go through life and our reticular activating system doesn't actually pick it up and won't say, oh, there's an opportunity for me. It'll say, no, not for me, not for me, not for me. Danger, unknown. And then on the other side, there's another cage, and everyone in this cage is eating their bananas. There's an abundance of bananas because every time they got their bananas, they got given more bananas. Now, if you were to take one of these monkeys out and put him in the new cage, what do you think would happen? He'd freak out first, and he'd be like, "This is not safe. This is weird." But eventually, when he calmed down, he'd probably realize that it's actually safe, and he would have one, and then he'd have two, then he'd just join in with the environment. Because that's what everyone's doing. Same as if you took a monkey from the other one who has an abundance of bananas, you put him into the other cage, what do you think he'd do? Very soon realize that you're not allowed to have them here. So we'll become a product of our own environment. So if we can surround ourselves with a cage filled with extremely rich and happy and successful, incredible people, we'll become just like them. So the best thing to do is to change your environment. This is why I run full immersion personal development programs, because the fastest way I've seen people transform is through a single weekend. Full immersion, 40 hours a weekend, boom, change every single thing you thought was real about your life and change it into what you want it to be. And they'll have the biggest breakthroughs in their life. So environment is most important, but I think what most people struggle with is maybe the right you.
The right attitude, the right values.
Yeah. Because it's just so deeply programmed. Like 0 to 7 years old is the imprint phase, right? So we're a little unconscious mind walking around and we're just soaking in everything. It's like we're in constant hypnosis, right? Which I'll talk about how everybody got brainwashed through COVID. So 0 to 7, the unconscious mind is completely open. There's no conscious filter, right? So all the information is coming in. Their identity is being programmed. Their value system is being programmed. Their belief system, who they think they are in the world and what the world is being programmed. 7 to 14 is the modeling period, where the next phase of their life is what they believe to be true about themselves, their identity, and the value system is all being programmed around the people that they're modeling from. Look at the role models in the world today. You got people like Sam Smith wearing weird shit on stage, dressed like the devil. You got Cardi B, like you got wild shit, right? And you got all this crazy. When I grew up, the role models was like Bart Simpson, right? So you just got to question everything. Why is all these things the way they are? It's interesting. And then 14 to 21 is the socialization phase. So we'll become who we believe we are based off what is socially normal, socially acceptable, what's happening around us, the people around us. So the schools are going to the universities, all these sorts of things. And throughout those things, we've now got 2 million pieces of information every single 1 second goes into our brain. But our brain can only process about 134 bits of that information every 1 second. So that's nearly 2 million pieces of information every second being completely left out unconsciously, being filtered. So our brain will generalize, delete, or distort information because otherwise it's too much to take in. It's like, whoa, just go quickly see all the information. I'm going to delete that. It's not important. I'm going to generalize that. It's kind of like this. And I'm going to distort that. It's a bit fuzzy, right? And I'm going to take what's actually important for me to survive, right? So, you think why it's the hardest part for people to work on is themselves is because look at all the programming, how many years they've had sitting in the cage saying that they can't have their bananas. And then eventually they come out into the real world and they say, well, you can have them. And they just don't feel safe to have it, but they don't know why they feel unsafe to have it. And it's just this world of peeling back the onion layers and being like, why is this a thing? So brainwashing people. I'm not saying that the government was trying to brainwash people. I wouldn't say that. But I would just say how someone is effectively brainwashed. And I'll just use it as an example. So there's 4 things you need to brainwash somebody. Number 1 is hypnosis. So let's dive into this, okay? First one is hypnosis. So you can't brainwash somebody with just hypnosis alone. And they tested this because I think his name was George Estabrook, one of the first early grandfathers of hypnosis. He was the ones who helped test and create MK Ultra. Have you heard of that? Where they literally created double spy agents so they could go kill people, come home and be a human with their families and all this stuff. And then they can also create assassination attempts like, on presidents and stuff like this and have people that are in jail and have no idea that it even happened. So hypnosis is one thing. So hypnotic language patterns. There's thousands of hypnotic language patterns. Some of them are things like universal quantifiers are called. So we're all in this together. right? That's a universal quantifier. We all know that podcasts are the best source to get information. We all know that if you're listening to this podcast, you should subscribe, right? Because everyone who listens to podcasts like this, subscribe to podcasts like this because they are the best. Everyone's doing it. You should too. Okay. It's hypnotically, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. So what a hypnotic language pattern does, it pierces through the conscious mind where you don't rationalize it. It just lands unconsciously. And they're like, yeah, makes sense. So it's kind of like tells the conscious mind sort of just like just take a break for a second. We're going to deliver some information here. So we all know that if you subscribe to this podcast, subscribe to my podcast too. Dream out loud. Right? So hypnotic language patterns is one. We're all in this together. That's a big one. There was so many we saw.
Take care of grandma.
That's a guilt trip. That's hectic, right? Guilt. Which biggest way to motivate someone is make them feel shit about doing something to just, get out of guilt. People don't want to feel crap, so they want to get back to, But, hypnotic language patterns is a big thing, right? So, but like I can literally put someone in a hypnosis within a few minutes and for the right person, have them completely out cold, convinced that they're a chicken, right? So if I can do that with some people, just through language, the media uses hypnotic language patterns just to install things into you, fear, worry. It's all happening all around us, right? That was a pattern. It's happening all around us, right? It's all these sorts of things. So that's the first thing, right? So hypnotic language patterns is the first thing that they will actually use. Second thing is they need a massive reward. So you need a massive reward. So, like, I don't know, if you get vaccinated, you can travel. It's a pretty good reward. Like I'm saying, I'm not saying that they did this. Definitely wouldn't say that. But this is a good example because it's very similar to it. It's almost like they did, but I don't think they did. But what happened in Australia, there was actually like a radio station I think was doing. It's like, if you go get vax this week, you can go in the draw to win $1 million. Huge reward. Big lockdowns. If you get, if you vax, you can leave the house. All these sorts of things. So what that also do is successfully brainwash somebody is to give them a massive reward. So if you can do this, you get this reward. You get this food, or you get this money, or feeling good.
You get your freedom back.
All these sorts of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Third thing is you need a huge punishment, a leverage. Do this, you get a reward. Don't do this, you get punished. So, I don't know, things like, if you don't do it, you get another lockdown. You don't do it, you can't run a wedding. You can't go to a funeral. You can't travel. Punishment, 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 punishment. And the fourth one is LSD. Yeah. So they would use mind-altering substances. This is what I'm saying. Like, I don't think they fully, as if the government could completely brainwash people. As if the government could do something like that. It's quite conspiracy theorist to think something like that could happen, right? But so how to actually, like MK Ultra and how to successfully brainwash somebody, they'll use LSD, mind-altering substances, and amplify all these feelings and really, really, really embed these things so deeply unconsciously. So obviously nobody was on LSD, but they need a drug substance or a lack of that. So perhaps lack of vitamin D, lack of serotonin that you get from when you connect with people, lack of just deprived of our daily chemicals. Why was so many people depressed and anxious being in lockdown, not actually getting out in the sun, not seeing people, not seeing loved ones, all these sorts of things? It's a lack of drugs, right? So it's still altered with drugs. But yeah, so that's the four things you actually need to successfully brainwash somebody. And there's an incredible person to watch. His name is Derren Brown. Derren, Derren Brown. And he's like one of the top mentalists, hypnotists in the world. And he does heaps of experiments like this on people to see how far they can push people through mind-altering things. And he does tests on them. And then obviously at the end of it, he fixes it all and shit. But it's hectic to see how suggestible the mind is and how people are actually just programs going through. And if you don't know how you're being controlled, you are being controlled. Yeah, so it's super important to sort of know how
What is the best way to stay unhypnotized in a world that is always trying to hypnotize you?
Super aware of what people are actually doing, strong boundaries, and a strong level of like self-worth. Actually really checking in, like, why am I saying yes to this? Am I saying yes to this because I'm really wanting to do this, or am I saying yes because there's pressure for me to say yes? You know, is there pressure around me if I don't say this? You know, and really just checking in with your gut, like, what's your body saying? Sit on your hands for a second, like actually relax before making a decision. You know, like, because peer pressure is a huge thing, and there's been tests done with this as well that Darren Brown guy actually did. He's on Netflix. It's called The Push. You can watch it. And he wanted to see, could he use just peer pressure alone to get someone to kill somebody?
I'm guessing yes.
You'll have to watch the video, right? Hectic, because what starts to happen is micro buy-ins. This is the power of influence. So if you can get someone to do a teeny little thing for you, chances are they'll probably do another teeny little thing, and another thing, and another thing, and another thing, and it just never stops, right? So it's really just check in and be like, why am I doing this? And it's having just strong boundaries. I really think that's the biggest thing. Because if you don't know who you are, then you'll be controlled by anyone, you know. But just knowing, like, I've never talked about this before, so I'm just literally making up shit. I'll probably think of a better answer when I finish this. But like, I'm just very aware of what people are saying to me and how they're saying things to me. So everyone's trying to influence someone. It's just basic sales. It really is. Like, everyone's selling something every day, selling you on an idea. The other day when we were at dinner, you sold me on the idea of coming on the podcast. I'm like, yeah, right? If it wasn't sold, I'd be like, you know? So everyone's like, it's all about influence, right? So yeah, I think the biggest thing is awareness.
And you knowing all these tools and having studied the mind, having studied how people get influenced, probably also helps you to avoid getting influenced by others.
Yeah, it's fucking hard to, yeah, like I know when people are doing shit to me, and it's funny, and I do it back on them twice as hard.
That's what I was gonna say is, do you use the dark arts in an ethical way? Because I feel like there's got to be values in yourself. Definitely. Of like, how am I going to use these powers that I've learned?
Definitely. And I've talked about this before. It's like, I could really, and this is like, you look at like a just typical narcissist, you know, and everything comes back to your value systems, you know, and it's probably good that I'm programmed the way I am, because knowing what I know, I could definitely like manipulate people, systems, anything to get anything I fucking want. I'm just not wired like that. I'm really wired for like yesterday I jumped on a call with someone who's buying one of our programs, like a $20,000 program. And she was meant to jump into it, and she sort of delayed it, and she's like, oh, a little bit worried, which is quite normal. Sometimes people like, so I was like, okay, I'm going to jump on this call. Now, if I could within 5 minutes close this. But I'm like, that's not my goal. My goal is to actually really understand, to see if this is actually right for her, like legitimately. I'm like, I need to see if this is right for her. So it's like, I know the things I need to know, but I park them, and I often just lead with my heart with a lot. And funny enough, that's the best, probably one of the strongest ways also as well to influence someone is authenticity, you know, and actually just being like, I'm going to look at this objectively. Like, of course, from a business point of view, we want you in. But what I also understand is if you're in and it's not right, you're going to be a pain in the ass. And my overall mission is to create a massive impact. So if I bring you in and it puts you into financial distress, that's the opposite of what I want to do right here as well. So, you know, I definitely use my own moral compass. But, you know, unfortunately, I know there's people out there who don't. Yeah.
What is one book you think every person should read?
Your Erroneous Zones
by Wayne Dyer.
Yeah.
Tell me why that book had an impact on you.
It had a really good impact on me because it really helped me become aware of like patterns, like approval seeking patterns, like things I was doing unconsciously just to try and get approval from people, and I had no idea about it. And it taught me a lot about self-security and self-boundaries and why I'm doing things. So I think that's definitely a pretty good book to check out. Yeah. But one thing I do want to say, So there's 7 levels of consciousness. Okay. So this all comes down to why people do what they do. So it doesn't matter what you know, it matters why you do it. So at the first level of consciousness, it's all about survival. So why somebody does what they do. Because you might look at, so if someone at values level 1 would say they committed murder, you're like, well, why'd you do that? Well, they were trying to attack me. Or I was threatened by them, they killed them. Wasn't wrong. That's just why they did it was because they had to. It's all about survival. Level 2, it's about the clan and protecting the family. More spiritual. It's very, here in Bali, it's very level 2, very cultural, very spiritual, very family, very village tribe, and that's why it's so beautiful. And why it's important here is because it's like someone here would commit murder if it was a threat to the clan. Well, why'd you do that? Because they were threatening the clan. It was a threat here. Or they went against the chief, right? They may commit murder to somebody else, right? And this is very stereotypical. I'm not saying it wouldn't happen in Bali, but it's like why they do what they do is because, well, they were threatening the chief, or because that's against our rules. You don't do that. One thing I have seen happen here is theft. When theft happens, and locals will beat the shit out of them. Yeah, right. So it's a thing where if you're caught stealing, they fear that don't let the locals catch me, because they'll be like, don't do that. That's not what we do, right? And the next level, level 3. So why they do what they do is because it's all about me. It's all about righteousness. It's all about power. It's about control. So they would use skills like this to manipulate other people to get what they want. So I kill that person because they were in my way. No reason. Nothing bad against them. They were just in my way. No hard feelings. No, that doesn't make me bad. They're in my way. And then the 4th level is it was the wrong thing or the right thing to do. So it's very, very righteous, very good and bad, evil, good, right and wrong, the good book, the rules, follow the system, follow the book, get the government job, go to university, follow the things, be the good boy, be the good girl. They would not kill the person because they would feel extremely guilty about doing it. They wouldn't really commit murder here because it's the wrong thing to do. I don't do that because it's the wrong thing to do. If they did do it, it would be because it's the right thing. We had to hang him because it was the right thing to do. He committed murder. It was the right thing. We had to do it. Next one, 5th level, it's a win-win. Win-win. It's like more entrepreneurial focus, more business focus. We want everyone to sort of figure this out. We're not going to kill anybody. Well, like the only reason this person's going to get killed is that we've done a whole group consensus, and he's also sort of agreed on it. Look, guys, unfortunately, it's going to have to happen. All right, it's going to have to happen. But it's more so. It's about a lot of the time here, it's about let's find a way for him not to get killed. It's like so we can all come on, guys, we're playing a bigger game here. Let's do a win-win. Let's figure this out. Next level is 6. That would never happen because 6 is all about collective consciousness. Everybody, peace, love, brown rice, save the world, save the ocean, save the whales. I'm going to sit in Ubud and meditate. I'm not going to have a job though. I'm going to have no job and I'm going to meditate all day long. I'm going to find myself. And then 7 is they come all the way back to themselves really. And it's like, okay, I've worked through every single level. And I'm going to do what I do because it makes sense. And they can really tap into each level that they need because it makes sense for who I need to be at this time right now to get the best outcome that just makes sense for the overall planet. That's the different levels of thinking. So based off a lot of things we've talked about, why someone does something is different. Why you do something is different from why I do it. Right? And it all comes down to everyone's doing the best they can with all the information they have right now. And so people are not their behavior, and you've just got to love people and see them for who they really are and through the masks and the fear and stuff that they've actually been putting in front of them and blocking and all these sorts of things. And because I think everyone at their core is actually just love and wants connection and wants to enjoy, and they're just trying to navigate their way through a strange world.
Morgan, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show.
The longest podcast I've ever done.
That's how we roll. We go deep. One final question.
Yeah.
What is your dream for the planet?
Oh, my dream for the planet would really love to see the current government system completely change, the politicians completely change, and have a whole new, like have like leadership, like actual leaders step up into the world. That'd be good. And to actually see proper education instilled in the education system, teaching things about like emotional resilience, emotional intelligence, money, relationships, things like this. That'd be really cool. Like if I could really see that in the next 20 years, like how the school's starting to change, where kids are growing up and actually have an understanding of themselves and their minds better and their emotions, that'd be really cool.
Beautiful. Where can people find you if they want to vibe with you?
Yeah, so our podcast is called Dream Out Loud. We've had some amazing guests on there. Find us on any platform, YouTube and everything like that. And then Instagram for me, Morgan T. Nelson. That's where I hang out the most, either on Instagram. I reply to all my DMs. So if you have any other questions, hit us up there. And people that want to get that thing that we mentioned,
The True North Star test.
Just DM me on Instagram and remind me of this podcast. Say, can I get that? And I'll get my team to send something over to you. I've never done it before. Like I don't even give it out as like a lead magnet or anything for us, but we'll pull it from our books so people can do it.
That's beautiful. Thank you, dude.
Yeah.
Such a pleasure.
Love it, mate. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, such a pleasure, man. So much wisdom, so many gems.
So good.
You've been listening to the James Xander Trip with Morgan T. Nelson. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this episode, do me a favor and share it with one person who you think might benefit from this epic conversation. You can find the podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and at jamesxander.com. Much love, and we shall see you in the next episode.